So how did I go from being a cop to a convicted felon?
Right.
Clearly, it has to do with. So now it's this really big case that's like hitting Fox News, it's hitting CNN, so it's all over the place. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna go give my kids a hug, so I know I'm going to jail today. The first like 10 years of my life was just abuse, homelessness, my dad in and out of prison, you know, my mom addicted to probably every drug that you can imagine and disappearing for weeks at a time. My grandmother, actually my dad's side, so I call her the good grandma. So she finally learned what was going on, the amount of abuse that I was suffering, and decided, hey, I'm going to take these kids in at 66 years old when she took us. And I was able to live what I considered somewhat of a normal life. Of course, my normal life at that age consisted of going to meet my mom at a visitation center one Saturday, you know, for supervised visitation, which she didn't show up 90% of the time. And then the other one, going to San Quentin and visiting my dad for that Saturday. So I didn't have just a normal
middle class.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Wow.
So that was kind of my first, you know, from 10 to 14, that was pretty much what I did off and on. And, you know, my dad, believe it or not, someone who served, I think in total, roughly 14 years in prison off and on. And for more low level crimes, things that nowadays would be a citation and moved out, methamphetamine use, petty theft, but he was on parole, right? So every time it's a violation, 2 years, San Quentin, here he goes. And but he was actually the one that had told me, you know, be a police officer, which was so strange, right? I have this guy who's in prison, you know, over and over and over his whole life. But he would say, he's like, when I would sit in San Quentin, I'd look at all these guards and they're playing on their expensive, fancy phones, and here we are with nothing, you know. And he said, don't live my life, you know, go live that life. So it was, you know, kind of his advice that took me to, you know, I'm never going to use drugs. I'm going to stay out of trouble and focus on, you know, my scholastics and school. And so it was weird. I kind of, you know, as much as, you know, I hate what my dad did, you know, because it forfeited the ability for us to have a relationship. But it also showed me, for one, the kind of dad I want to be, and also the life that I want to live, which was going to be the exact opposite of his. Of course, I ended up with some similarities regardless. Maybe we are a product of our environment.
Things don't always go according to plan.
Yeah.
You know.
And ended up joining the Army. I did 8 years in the military. So I was doing very well, decided, you know, maybe I need to go the Green Beret route and go Special Forces. So I started training with those guys, and that was the ultimate goal. You know, I was like, I'm going to swap over. I'll go SF. I'll become a Green Beret. I'll do this for maybe the next 5 years, get out, and then, you know, whether I go into law enforcement or, you know, work with the feds, which would have been interesting. You know, whatever the case may be, I knew that was my path. Of course, I was married, you know, got married at 23 and kind of got a surprise, and my ex-wife now, but got pregnant. So that changed things a little bit.
How'd that happen?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, just one time. But yeah, no, that changed things a little bit. So then the whole Special Forces route that I wanted to go, that kind of got put on the back burner. With a new baby on the way, you know, arguably with my childhood, I knew I wanted to be a present father. So I was like, well, this is going to be one of those sacrifices. I'm going to probably sacrifice this dream that I have, and that's okay because I'm going to be a present dad. And so I ended up not re-upping in the military and started applying to police agencies all over. And
How old were you at that point?
so I got hired, technically, I started applying when I was like 25, 26, and I got hired at 27.
So anything interesting happened there, or?
Oh, yeah. I'll give you, you know, one of the stories that kind of always hits home to me or resonates with me was, you know, I loved vehicle pursuits.
Right.
I mean, that's one of the reasons you get into law enforcement is drive fast, right? Chase bad guys, right? That's what you want to do. And so one night I'm working patrol, and I see a vehicle starting to pass me, and it immediately stands out to me. And I see the driver, I recognize him, and when I pull behind him, he knows that I'm going to end up pulling him over, and takes off on me. So we're in downtown Antioch, which the city of Antioch is kind of like a grid. So it's really easy to follow. It's basically, you know, streets labeled, you know, 1st through 10th or all the way up to 20th and A, B, C, D, right? So it's really easy to track people and get into pursuits in there because it's directional. So we take off in this pursuit, and immediately we're hitting 60, 70, 80 miles an hour through city streets, running red lights. You know, he gets onto the highway, he's trying to lose me, and I start seeing guns get thrown out of the car. So I'm literally trying to come over the radio and talk about, hey man, they just threw a gun out over here. They just threw a gun out over here. I'm seeing these objects come out of vehicles.
Mile marker 132, mile marker 137, mile marker.
Exactly.
I mean, you're throwing out landmarks, right?
Literally. Yeah, literally. And of course, in a pursuit, not people, if you haven't listened to a pursuit, there's a lot that goes into it. For a police officer, you have to put out the direction that you're traveling. You got to put out the speed that you're traveling. You got to put out if there's pedestrian traffic, if there's vehicle traffic, because your supervisors are listening to this, determining, hey, do we let this pursuit go on or do we terminate, right? And so these guys are going to drive as crazy as humanly possible
because they know that.
Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of the times what they'll do is they'll go wrong way on the freeway because they want to try to get away from you. And they know in California most of the time they'll terminate the pursuit because it's just too dangerous. Head-on collisions are going to kill people, which they do.
You call in like a helicopter, or there's just not enough helicopters?
Yeah, we call them in, but the problem is they're too late to the game. A lot of times by that time these guys are gone. But if they're in the air already, helicopters are a phenomenal asset. But these guys they're literally hitting every street impossible. And I chased them through 2 different cities. So by this time, we're into like a pretty good, probably 30-minute, pursuit, which is extremely long, right? That typically doesn't happen. But again, it's middle of the night. We're hearing that guns are getting thrown out of the car. Officers who I'm calling out where these are recovering these firearms, right? Mm-hmm. So now they know, hey, this is a pretty substantial thing. This isn't just a normal vehicle pursuit. This is, these guys are up to something, and we don't know what these guns are tied to. We don't know anything about the case. So they're letting it go. And by letting it go, they're letting me continue to pursue them.
Right.
Well, eventually the vehicle crashes and they foot bail, and 2 guys hop out. And of course, I get to the first guy. Kind of the rule of thumb when you're a police officer is you stay with the car, right? So if the passenger goes, you're going to let that guy go. You're really staying with the vehicle and whoever's left in there. So I do a high risk on him, which just means I got my gun out, I'm pointing it at him, I'm giving him commands, and I'm alone at this time, right? Mm-hmm. All my partners start getting there on scene, and I'm putting out radio traffic, talking about the guy, what he's wearing, where he's going, last he's seen running. And he goes running off into basically like a high school. And so we get the other guy, the driver, we get him in custody, and he doesn't make it out. And so we have him contained, and now we have just a huge perimeter set up.
What do you mean he didn't make it? He didn't get away.
He didn't get away.
Oh,
sorry.
I thought maybe he didn't make it out of the car.
No.
He died? Did he die?
No, he survived. Okay. He survived. And so he ends up, we take him into custody, no injuries, no nothing like that. It wasn't some severe accident. It was just more, I think they crashed in an effort to just ditch the car and get out of there. But he just wasn't fast enough like the passenger was. So we have a big perimeter set up, and the way it works is really whenever you have somebody flee, you're going to set up as big a perimeter as possible, and then you're going to slowly move it in. You're trying to just kind of tighten that up until you can clear everything out with canines, helicopter, or whatever you have available to you. Well, we have all these cops working this perimeter, and one of the guys, I won't say his name to save him the embarrassment, friend of mine, but he's sitting there on a perimeter. He's watching, looking for somebody. Well, this guy comes out of the bushes, and he sees him, and they look at each other, and he goes, "Hey, man, you got to get out of here. We're
God.
We're looking for somebody." And the guy's like, "Oh, thank you," and starts walking off. And then he sits there for a second, the officer, and realizes, oh shit, I think that's the guy. I think I just let him go. So this guy's just bebopping down the road thinking he just got away. Well, obviously we ended up taking him into custody. But those 2 guys, I can't remember what they ended up pleading. I know they pled guilty. Those guns were tied to some homicides.
Ugh.
And so I think one of them took a deal for like 30 or 35 years. One took a deal for like 20 something years.
Why would you keep the gun?
Right. Yeah.
I don't get that.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
I'm going to resell it. Why resell it?
Yeah.
Somebody who gets caught with it later will just say, I bought it from Jimmy.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, this is why connected. Job security for you, because they know about ballistics. They know that we're going to be able to determine if this is going to be related to a crime, and they keep them anyways, and they'll just reuse them.
We had a guy that was on here, and it's funny. He and I had actually talked prior to, and he. His big thing was worry about the misdemeanors, and the felonies will take care of themselves. He's like I didn't ever look over and think that car's got 2 keys in it. He said I looked over and I thought that guy's taillight's out.
Yeah.
He said because I pull it over. You pull it over for the taillight. He said as you're approaching, He said these guys will drive around with a broken taillight, 2 keys in the fucking trunk. He's smoking marijuana, and I'll walk up and go, I smell marijuana.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to search your car now. And then he said, where if they weren't smoking the marijuana, I'd pull them over and say, hey, man, I got to write you a ticket for the taillight. Okay, no big deal. He's like, this guy looks like a normal guy. Yeah. But the problem is, and I realize this, obviously, is that most of the types of people that will commit felonies, they also they have tons of little tiny misdemeanors. They do the little things like the kind of guy that thinks it's okay to deal in drugs will also throw something out of his car window. And I always say that, with the fraud guys, for fraud guys, I don't think it's like that as much. But what they do is like they won't do maintenance.
Yeah.
Like they get the money and they walk away. It's like, wait a minute, if you make three payments on this loan, it puts it off for 6 months or 3 months and then another 3 months. But if you don't make the first payment, they immediately say, oh, first payment default, it's fraud. And so within a week, they're already looking at this for fraud, and you don't end up going a month. And now they know it was fraud. Well, you could have held it off for 6 months, and after 6 months, there's all of these things that there's no more footage, and the camera footage is over, and this there's all these things that disappear, and it's too late, or they don't even know there was fraud at all. They just think the guy took out a loan, didn't make the payments, and he went into default.
Yeah.
That happens.
Yeah.
But it's these little tiny stupid things that get people caught.
Oh yeah, and I'm one of them.
Right. Oh, good. I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
I have my buddy Zach. Like he's making hundreds of thousands of dollars every month, and then he went and he and his wife rented a hotel using a stolen credit card.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But you have $300,000 in the bank.
Yeah.
I know, but why would I pay? Because you have $300,000 that you can pay. Why take the risk? He's like, well, I just didn't think it was going to be a big deal, but it was a big deal.
Exactly.
Like that's just the dumbest.
That's what got you caught.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was minor compared to what you were doing. So why would you take that risk at all? Pay for it.
Yeah. It's almost like consider it a tax write-off if you got to pay the cash.
Really?
Really, save you.
So the guy, so you don't know what happened, but 30 years, that guy. So
yeah.
What else? Anything else going on?
I mean, last I kind of heard with them, actually, California is a crazy state. They have decided, I believe, to lower the severity of homicide, murder, right? So if you kill somebody and maybe you don't, I don't know, watch them die. I don't know the details of it, but it sounds like both these guys are putting in to get out. So who knows? With California, you never know. They may just let them back out even with homicide charges. I think the average that I would see, if you killed somebody in California, most of the people there wouldn't do more than 10 years, and they're back out on the street.
Yeah,
So,
I have a buddy whose son did something like 5 or 10 years, got out, killed somebody with another gang member, DNA on the cigarette, DNA on the other guy's saying he's the one that did it, DNA on the gun. I mean, hands down, he executed another gang member.
Yep.
And he ended up getting like 10 years and did like 7 or something. And it was like, are you serious? Like, yeah, he pled to 10. Pled to 10. He picked up the guy, took him out like on a beach somewhere where it was like an area you weren't allowed to go, like behind some fences, went out there, put the guy on his knees, and then executed him.
Yep.
And you got 10 years? Like,
that's where we stand.
It's insane.
But if you are somebody who's a contributing member of society your whole life and you have a white collar crime, they're going to you're going to look at 15 years at least,
Right.
No, you may not even really have like victims on there, but it's a crazy one. And I had a buddy when I first had started at Antioch PD. I had a good friend that I knew from the military, probably one of the smartest guys I know, still one of my closest friends today. And went to Stanford, literally just genius naturally. Didn't come from anything, but just, I think he minored in Mandarin. Like literally just decided, I'm going to learn another language. Combat veteran, brilliant guy. But he got into some fraud stuff as a police officer and was doing like tax returns for deceased people and collecting a lot of money. I don't think he even like actually spent any of it, but it was almost, to me, it seems it was more like a middle finger to the government because he had come back from Afghanistan, severe PTSD, crazy deployments, and got like 30% on his disability. And he's like, all my buddies are dying around me. My buddies' brains are on me, and this is what I get, So he did that. He ended up getting caught for it, and they were looking at like 80 years for him for the amount of money. And it's like, here's a guy who served his country, served as a police officer. He was obviously a good resource for me when I went through this because he understood the federal process, but did all these heroic things. Phenomenal police officer, but obviously made some mistakes. And granted, there were technically victims, but they were deceased. If you want to call them that, yeah.
It's the tax fraud typically has one victim. That one victim is the U.S. government, which is an enhancement in the federal system, by the way.
Exactly.
If you steal from the government, you get an enhancement.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
yeah.
If you steal from a charitable institution, you get an enhancement.
But if you steal from a person,
that's just a victim.
The one who actually probably
the one that it really hurts because nobody at Bank of America or the Salvation Army or the federal government, nobody is rolling around at night going, I can't believe that guy sold $200,000 from us.
Exactly.
No, that's ridiculous. I can't. Nobody lost any sleep. But the person, if you steal $200,000 from a regular individual, you might have just wiped out everything that they have or ever will have. You may have. Really fuck them up.
Exactly.
And there's no enhancement for that.
No. Nope. Yeah.
Nuts.
Yeah. Well, I think the government obviously builds the system to obviously be beneficial to the government.
Protect them.
Which I learned more about that. I didn't know anything about the federal side until my case, obviously. But yeah, this guy that, that I'm good buddies with, it was sad to see him go through it because he lost everything that he'd worked for his whole life. Of course, he's come back and, he's a brilliant guy. Guys like that, guys like yourself, right? You can throw them away. They're going to come out and they're going to do something again that's going to be, they're just going to now operate in the capacity of the law because they're like, okay, I get it. I did this before. I messed up. Yeah. Now let me do it the right way and show you that I can still make money and still be profitable and successful in my life. So he's done that, created a junk hauling business that he hires vets and he's expanding and just a brilliant guy, huge asset to me, good mentor for me. And, and somebody, when I worked for the police department, he was going through this. I was pretty new there, and he had asked me if I could write a character letter for him, right, for the judge. Crazy story is him and me ended up having the same judge, and he wrote a character letter for me later. But who would have thought, right? Small world. But yeah, he asked me to write a character letter, and of course, everybody in the PD, police officers are divas. I learned in law enforcement, I really don't like most cops. I don't get along with the vast majority of them. Maybe it was my upbringing, whatever the case may be. They're not my type of people for the most part. Right. And so when he asked me to do it, I was like, of course, I knew this guy through the military. I knew him as a friend. And so I got in trouble for writing him a character letter. I spoke nothing about him as a police officer in that capacity, but the PD didn't want anything to do with him, just threw him in the garbage. This was a guy who served, I think he was at that PD for 10 years, dedicated his life to it. And made a mistake in his personal life. I get it. He knew what he was doing, but it didn't take away from the good that he did, right? And everybody turned their back on him, which
I always like you'll go to whatever, and I'm sure it's the same way in the police department or any organization where you always have the managers or where they'll say, we're a family here.
Yeah.
It's like, we're a family.
Oh, yeah.
I do one thing and you're cutting me off and giving me a bad, a bad recommendation and just cutting me off at the knees. Like, you wouldn't do that to your family. You know what I'm saying? Like,
of course.
One thing and you talk shit. Like, it's like, it's so funny because I've had so many jobs where they were like, we're family here.
Oh yeah, well
we're one big family. Cut the shit, bro.
It is. It's bullshit. In law enforcement they call it the thin blue line. You've heard that, right? Yeah. I refer to it as the transparent blue line because it doesn't exist. And I learned that just going off on medical injury, right? Like,
Well, I think at one time, I think back in the 60s and 70s in New York or something, it did because a lot of these cops were horrific, and the whole police station. Well. Shoot, it was probably in the 40s, 50s, 60s. It wasn't probably till the 80s and 90s it started becoming like, no, we need to protect ourselves at the cost of, and then as it goes on, and now, I think.
Yeah, Rodney King kind of changed everything for when it came to, police agencies protecting the officers. Yeah. And then obviously when, George Floyd, things like that, just doesn't help it, right? Right. But yeah, it's that thin blue line thing is as fake as it comes, and I have no problem saying it because you get off. Like I said, I went off on injury for a back injury, and it was like I didn't exist anymore. Nobody calls to check on you. Nobody's checking in to see how you're doing. Nobody cares. This isn't a family. But when you're around, and you're hosting barbecues every weekend and stuff, then it's a family all of a sudden, as long as you're being beneficial to one another.
Yeah.
But
if you know that going in, you're much better off than buying into the bullshit.
Yep.
We had a guy that had been hired by this police department, and he explained, I'm in the National Guard.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that and they, how that works. And they absolutely no problem. We're very huge supporters of the military, huge support. And the problem is every time he would go to do something, they'd be like, oh, no, you got to work that weekend. He'd be like, no, I explained. Yeah. And I'm telling you well in advance.
Exactly.
They're like, well, you got to find somebody. What do you mean I have to find somebody? Like, you have to find somebody. Like, what are you It was he said every fucking time it was a huge argument. Yeah. And so and he's like, and this is not outrageous, by the way. I know when this is happening.
Yeah, of course.
So eventually what happened was somebody, I don't know whether it was whoever it was in the police department, they basically started to try and get rid of him, like really make it a priority to let's try and get rid of this guy. It's like, but they wanted to hire me. They came to me. They were hiring. He's like, I don't know if they were filled, and now let's start getting rid of anybody that we have an issue with. Anyway, he eventually sued them. I don't know what happened to the lawsuit, but remember he had the little dog? He brought with him a little dog.
Interesting. Like a PTSD dog?
Yes.
Okay.
A little tiny dog that was, and the whole time
I don't know why that's so funny to me.
I know. And I noticed the little dog, that he was petting the little dog, and I did notice it. But you know what was hilarious to me was in the comments section. Remember the guy said, "What's up with this guy? What's up with Dr. Evil?" Yeah. And his little fucking, I was like, "Oh my, wish I had thought about that." Because even though I thought it was strange, I thought, well, don't say anything. Yeah. But I did want to know. Like, I never asked, like, what's with the little dog?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. We need to track this guy down. I need to know about this dog.
I do want to know what happened to the lawsuit. Like, I do think they were offering him money or something.
Oh,
I forget what the guy's name was. But it was the same thing. It was just this horrible way that the police department was treating him. Mm-hmm. When you asked me to come here, he's like, I have no write-ups, no this, no that. And ultimately, they ended up firing him, and then he was in the middle of a lawsuit, and they were trying to settle the lawsuit. Yep. And he was just like, no, I'm not settling for nothing. You guys targeted me.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, law enforcement in and itself, they're so disgruntled, right? And it's like they hate their life. So it's like, why are you doing this job? I came there 2015, got on the gang unit quick. Was doing all kinds of assignments and investigations and having a blast with everything I was doing. 2017, I'm working, and there's a home invasion. And I'm literally like driving back to get off. It's raining outside, and there's a home invasion. These guys are, running out of the house, and some officer is either on viewing it or had just come in, but he sees the people, so he's putting out the direction that they're running. And so I'm like, okay, there's only one place they can be going. So I drive over to this area, and I'm looking around, and I see a guy sprinting behind these houses. So I'm like, all right, well, clearly this is one of our guys.
Hey, buddy, you better get out of here. Yeah. We're looking for somebody.
They're looking for someone. What are you doing here? So I had my cop hat on at that time, and I knew he was probably the one we were looking for. So I hop out of my car, I run around the corner, and him and me literally collide with each other. It's just full speed, hit each other, kind of unexpected. But then it turns into a little bit of a ground fight, and I end up getting him in handcuffs after, pretty minimal amount of struggle, but get him in handcuffs. And I go to stand up, and I feel something go in my back, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't get up. I'm stuck on my knee, and I'm literally sitting there, and I'm like, I don't know what's wrong, but I'm having these shooting pains down my legs, and it felt like I was paralyzed momentarily. And then it kind of started to work back in where I felt okay. So I get him up, and I go get him in the patrol car. And again, this is the end of my shift. And I get in the patrol car, sit down, and I just get this rush of feeling that is just abnormal in my lower extremities, where I'm like, okay, there's something wrong with my spine. It's not normal, but I'd had some spine, stuff before from the military and stuff. Nothing severe, but back pain. Yeah, normal back pain where, hey, you got to lay on the couch for a couple days. This was different. I could feel that something was not right. But in law enforcement, you never want to say that you're hurt, because if you say that you're hurt, you're going to get off on workers' comp. You're going to be off for God knows how long. They may, you're going to lose opportunity.
Yeah, but if you don't say it, then you don't get covered.
Exactly.
Then what they say is, oh, that happened when you were off duty. So no.
Yep.
Let's say while I was still on duty.
Yep, exactly. So I get back to the station. I book this guy in, and there's 2 other cops in there, and they're getting another guy who was part of it into the patrol car. Huge man, like massive as well. And so they asked me, hey, can you come grab his feet? We're going to carry him in the wrap, kind of same device we were talking about. We're going to carry him in the wrap. If you can go through the patrol car and grab his feet, pull him into the car, it'd help us out. And I'm thinking, shit, my back is like, something's wrong with it. But I'm like, well, I want to play it off. So I go over there, I grab him. Well, they get crammed in the door. They drop him. And I'm holding this guy by his feet as he goes to fall out the back of the patrol car. And it's all lower back. Yeah. And so all of a sudden I'm seized up again, and I'm like, okay, this is now getting really bad. We get him in, I get home, and no real significance of that story other than the back injury. But I get home and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to rest for a couple days. Things will be all right. And I go to walk up my stair steps, and I get to the top, I collapse, and I literally piss my pants. Just full, released all my bladder. Right. And I'm like, okay, that's not good. So call my PD. I tell him, hey, I was trying to hopefully take care of this. I thought I just threw my back out, nothing big, but it turns out it's worse than that. So that entered me into the world of workers' comp, and so I did, 3 months of, going to the doctor and talking to him and, fighting for an MRI, and they don't help you. They don't do anything for you. I was complaining that, I also had some issues with my neck. I didn't know what was going on with it. So they finally did some MRIs and said, yeah, you herniated a disc in your lower back. Basically you can medically retire or, maybe get surgery, who knows, but they gave me no options, right? And workers' comp, if you ask any police officer, it's a nightmare. So finally I'm like, well, I just want to get back to work. So I kind of did what I shouldn't have and just told them, hey, I'm fine. My back feels good, even though I was in significant pain. I was like, just get me back to work. I knew SWAT tryouts at that time were coming up. And so I wanted to be there for that. So I get cleared, I go back to work, and I had this severe back injury that was just lingering. Mm-hmm. And this is 2017, right? So over the next couple of years, it just got worse and worse and worse. I came back, I didn't get on our SWAT team, and they were concerned about my back and gave me all these excuses and whatever. So I said, no big deal. I'll try it again next time. And this was before all this social media stuff. And so I still was in good standing with the agency. I didn't have this injury, and I didn't have social media, or I wasn't a male model. So, I'm doing the job, and and that was when I really started to become, a good cop, I guess you could say. You were talking earlier about a guy who said that, he'd look for the misdemeanors to find the felonies. Right. And I always had kind of this different method. It was really weird. But when I worked in these really, poverty-driven areas, these ghetto areas, I would see all these little crappy cars, with the busted taillight and stuff like that. But for where we were, those were going to primarily be your users, your, they were going to have some misdemeanor warrant or something like that. And that's not why I got the job, right? There's two aspects of law enforcement. There's the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. Have you ever heard this?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So some people aren't familiar with it, but I operated heavily in the spirit of the law, right? If you did something and you're only affecting yourself, I really don't give a shit. Mm-hmm. I'm not here to ruin your life because you want to use meth. You're doing that on your own, right? But if you're committing other crimes and now you have victims, that's what I'm after, right? But really, I got into law enforcement because I was going back to those childhood memories of, I want to protect people. So I was looking for real criminals. I wanted, offenders. I wanted, people that are committing homicide, big gang things, big drug operations, not the kids selling, I didn't really care about those. That was my personal opinion of it. And so when I was driving through the ghetto areas, I rarely looked at those cars or ran them out. So I always looked for the European cars. If I'm driving through a high crime area with a low amount of money and there's, a brand new Audi that comes driving by me with no plates on it, I'm like, what's this expensive car doing in the ghetto at 1:00 in the morning?
Right.
And I'd go to stop that car, because they didn't have a plate or whatever the case, some sort of vehicle code violation, which there's 8 million of them, right? So you can stop somebody almost anytime you want because nobody follows all the rules of the road. And those were always the ones that would turn into, gang members in there, guns, drugs, big things because they're trying to live this lifestyle, but they still live in Section 8 housing.
Yeah,
right?
that always kills me.
Yeah, it's like you have a Aston Martin parked out here, but you're living in Section 8 housing that's $800 a month. So you walk inside, there's TVs and nobody's working. Clearly, a lot of floating holidays, right. And so it was just it always intrigued me because those would just catch my eye. But so many people, I guess so many officers, I should say, when they see those cars, they don't pull them over. And kind of working in gangs, I learned like all the big gang members are driving those cars. They're not driving the Honda Civic with the busted taillight.
Yeah, the low rider with the neon green wheel wells.
Exactly. Yeah. So I started really looking at those, and there was a specific one. I remember I'm driving past this house. When you work anywhere in law enforcement, obviously you're going to learn the trap houses. You're going to learn the high crime houses where people are coming and going. So I would do my rounds all the time, right? I would go through the neighborhoods, and very ADHD. I would just drive in circles and go from one house to the next, where all these houses were that I knew were going to be committing a lot of crime. And I remember, I'll never forget, I see this white Volvo pulled up there, and he's got black bumpers on it. And I just thought it was like, just looked out of place because it was a newer Volvo. It was nice. Mm-hmm. And right when I see him, he takes off. Doesn't even give me a chance to even see what he looks like or anything. Takes off. I go to try to catch up to him, and he's gone. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I'll see him again. It was a pretty identifiable car. So then literally the next day, I'm driving through one of the neighborhoods, and we literally come face to face with each other. And I see him, and I look at him, and he looks at me, and there's no front license plate, which he needs, so I can obviously activate a traffic stop on him. So I kind of flash my lights to him, and I say, hey, pull over. And he looks at me. I'll never forget this because I've never had anybody do this. But he looks at me, he goes, fuck no. Oh. And I'm like, what? And I was so surprised. Right. He puts it in reverse and takes off backwards. So I'm literally bumper to bumper with him, and he's going in reverse. And I'm like, I'm chasing this guy in reverse. So I put this out over the radio, and I tell him, hey, I got this guy. He's going in reverse in this direction. And he ends up jumping through someone's yard and in reverse? In reverse. Oh. Goes through someone's yard, spins around, like pulls this like move that you would see in like, Bad Boys or something, like literally like whips his car around, goes back this way. So I have to go through the yard to go back to catch him. So now I'm chasing this guy, and I'm like, who the hell is this guy? Like, first off, he was like a professional drifter or something. I don't know where he came from or where he had his experience, but he could drive. So I'm chasing him back through this neighborhood, and it's funny because the people sitting outside are watching us kind of go by back and forth. And he knows right away. He gets up to the highway, wrong way, on the freeway, and I have to terminate the pursuit, right? Mm-hmm. So, now I've gone after this guy twice, and I'm like, God damn it, man, this guy just keeps getting away from me. So, sure as shit, my next shift, I'm driving down the road, and I see it. He's going the other direction. I see him, and he sees me, and we lock eyes again. I'm like, there he is. And so I whip around. And before I can even, flip around, he's back on the highway, wrong way, right? So third time in a row, I didn't even get to put that one out. He was already gone. I ended up putting it out for like a safety thing, but I never pursued him or anything. And I'm like, God, this guy's done this to me, 3 times now. He keeps getting away, which is starting to hurt my ego a little bit, right?
Does he have do you ever get his tag number? Like, can you track the tag?
No plate on the car. So, which tells me it's
like you're desperate. I mean, you're destined to get pulled over every time a cop sees you.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
Yep. And we know when we see those no plates on them that they're going to be a stolen vehicle.
Right.
Right. 9 times out of 10, especially if they're running like that. So finally, I'm like, all right, I'll get him eventually. And so going to work, I'm working, and this call comes out in these kind of crummy apartments where there's always issues. And this guy puts out this like crazy call, says he just got attempted carjacking on him. And this, the guy fired 2 rounds at me, tried to kill me, and there was red laser coming out of the gun. And we're kind of like, this just doesn't sound real. So I was interested. So I pull in, and I wasn't the primary on the call, but I just kind of pulled in and start talking to the guy, and he's saying, yeah, this guy came up to me and he pulled a gun on me, and he goes, laser was right on my chest, and he says he's going to shoot me if I don't give him the car. So I went to grab his gun or something like that, and he goes, and he fired 2 rounds at me, and I dove out of the way, hopped in a white Volvo with black bumpers and took off. And I'm like, oh my God, here he is again. So I'm like, all right, I have to find this guy. you know. So I'm telling everybody, I'm like, hey, I've chased this guy like 3 times now. Now he's shooting at somebody. So I was like, this he's wanted for something crazy, obviously, right? And so we know he's violent because he just tried to literally kill somebody.
Right.
So later that evening, I'm driving down again, doing my rounds, and I see him pull into this apartment complex, or I'm sorry, to this little like motel. And I know that there's no way out of that motel. So
But he didn't see you.
He didn't see me yet. So
Nice.
I'm like, oh, there he is. So I yank in. I pull in, and right as I pull up, I go to hop out, and he's already trying to turn his car around and just rams right into me. And right then, I see a gun come up, and I'm like, oh, here it goes. So I, start sending rounds into his car, and I fire 4 rounds right through the windshield, right around him, and then I see him drop, and I think, oh no, I hit him.
You fire through your windshield?
Through his. I was getting out of my car.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I went to hop out of my car, and he just T-bones right into me.
Yeah.
And it kind of slams me back into the car before I can get out. And my concern is he's going to hit the door, my legs out. Mm-hmm. And then I see movement in the car, which looks like a gun comes up. And so, I obviously at that point, I'm like, I'm not messing around with this. Like, this dude's going to kill me. Just try to kill somebody else. So, I send rounds into the car, and somehow he ends up surviving with superficial injuries. And round hits into the headrest, literally center punches here, and he just had dropped at the right time, and had like a graze round that went through him, and nothing severe, and but he looked like he had gotten shot because he dropped down. So I had some pretty good discipline on me and only fired 4 rounds. I stopped because the threat had kind of ended, right?
Right.
And then when I put out over the radio, I'd been into a shooting. He opens the door. And I'm like, oh, he's going to run again, or he's going to try and shoot me. So I kind of go down, start giving commands, and then he complies, right? So now I know he's obviously alive, but I don't know how injured he is. So everybody gets, other officers are responding. Obviously, anytime there's an officer involved shooting, it's kind of a big deal. And so everybody's responding. They get over there, and unfortunately, I had put the information out, and then I hit my own like knob on my radio and turned off my radio. Mm-hmm. So I go code black on there, basically. Like,
I think you've been shot.
Yeah, I think I say shots fired, I'm over here, and then I think I'm putting out information over the radio, but I'm not. So, poor dispatch, they're sitting there thinking, oh my God, this guy's hit. My buddies are thinking I'm hit, and I get there, and obviously they get there, and obviously I'm fine. So we take him into custody, and then I had to get sequestered, and that basically anytime there's a critical incident or an officer involved shooting, the officer gets sequestered. They have to do a full interview on you. Especially if somebody dies. I had another one. I had to do that with an in-custody death. And so it was, the protocol that you have to go through, and everything was obviously cleared. Luckily for me, there was surveillance on the apartment or on the motel, so it captured everything.
Right.
So that was great. I was glad that was there. But so we take him into custody, and he was obviously the vehicle was stolen. The firearm actually ended up being right on the dash. And so he had pulled it out, probably was going to try and shoot me. It did have the red laser. So
that guy wasn't
so he wasn't lying. Yeah. I was like, man, I got to go back and tell this guy I'm sorry for not believing him initially. But, so we take him into custody. We take his buddy into custody, and gets charged on whatever. Obviously he's a 245, which is like a felony assault. He's trying to injure a police officer. Mm-hmm. So he gets hit with that for using his car to try and injure me, and gets put into custody. He's supposed to have a 10-day hold because he's on either probation or parole. I can't remember now. And our agency doesn't, for whatever reason, they forget to file the hold, or the sheriff's office forgets. Somebody drops the ball, and this guy gets 72. So he does, and 72 means he's, after 72 hours, if there's no charges that are filed and there's no hold, then you get released. Right, so he gets released.
But there are charges, right?
There were charges, but they weren't actually filed them with the DA.
Oh, but they never put and they never put the hold.
Exactly, and they forgot to put the hold. So he just gets sent out the door.
He must have been like,
they
call his name. He must have been like, yes,
exactly.
That is me.
Yep, yeah. So he gets released.
What took you so long?
I know. Yeah. I'm out, guys. Probably looking back.
All the guys are like,
yeah. Like, didn't you're the guy that had
weren't you just on TV with the shooting?
The cop tried to shoot you for a reason, right? It's like,
no, that was
me.
someone else.
Yeah, not me, guys. I was just, walking down the road. And he gets released, and he does what anyone would do in that situation. And
went and got a job, and
yeah, he went
to community college,
went to church,
became got his degree in accounting.
Yeah. And that's where he was en route to, but he decided he couldn't get there fast enough, so he carjacked somebody else.
Well, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
I need a car.
Yeah, you got to have a car.
They're not going to pick me up at junior college.
No. Yeah, you got to have a means of transportation. And he didn't have the money, so he just decided to take one. And so he ends up getting into another pursuit the day he gets released. And so now he's getting pursued wrong way on the freeway again, crashes into somebody, foot bails, makes it in, helicopters up at this time. This is not our agency, so I just get told what happened. Foot bails, gets into a storage shed. And he's hiding out in there because, remember we talked these helicopters, they can't see you with the flare if you're in the storage shed. So he's hiding out in there. And so officer with a canine releases the canine. The dog goes in there. You hear all this barking and craziness, but you don't hear the guy screaming, which is pretty odd because when those dogs bite you, they're little land sharks.
Yeah.
Like, they do some damage. And so the agency who's going to get him, they run in there after thinking the dog's on him. And the dog gets wrapped up on a bunch of yard equipment apparently. And so he doesn't get bit. So survives, bullets, literally grazing this guy. Dog's inches from him trying to bite him, doesn't get him. And then they take him into custody. He goes back, right? So he wasn't out very long, but ends up back there with new charges now. And I think last I'd heard he'd taken a deal for 3 or 4 years. And so, he probably did 8 months, California.
All that.
Yep. And he was probably back out doing the same thing. Unfortunately, that's just the way that it works. But yeah, he was he was interesting because he just kept. I'll just never forget that day when he looked at me and just said "fuck no," and I'm like, this dude just who does that, and put it in reverse. And that was a highlight. But I bring up that story because we're talking about me. I have no experience as a cop. I'm just a male model, right? According to some of my coworkers at the time. And of course, those were the things I got into the job for, though, right? That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to chase those guys. I wanted to take those guys into custody, the ones that were doing the home invasions and shooting at people and stuff, because to me, those are the real criminals out there. They're an actual danger to society, right? When that was all done, we had to do this, kind of round table thing. There was a shooting. People were stressed out about it. So dispatch is in there, and, we all had to go in and talk to the psych and stuff like that, right? So the psych's talking to me, and she's like, how do you feel about the shooting? And I'm like, I feel fine. First off, he's fine.
Yeah.
The guy survived, so I don't have any, guilt there. I knew I didn't do anything wrong. I was able to actually use discipline and not keep firing because, most police officers in general will unload their full magazine.
Yeah, you get your adrenaline gets.
Yeah, exactly. And I luckily had a high level enough of training that I did myself for a lot of shooting.
You don't want to get shot for lack of firing back.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm like, I just think it's kind of crazy that we're even sitting here having this conversation. And the psych, she asked me, she's like, well, what do you mean by that? Why is this stupid for us to have this conversation? I'm like, because that's my job, right? I knew I was getting into this job. I think anybody who becomes a police officer knows that they may get into a shooting. Somebody may try to hurt them. You are going to be trying to engage these people and chase them, and it's going to be violent. Right. That's what law enforcement is. And I'm like, but how come just several weeks before this, I had a little girl who drowned in a pool and died, which haunts me. Why aren't we talking about that?
Right.
Why aren't we, mental health wise, why aren't we bringing officers in here after an event like that? Because those are the ones that haunt you forever. Not the bad guy that's trying to kill you or you have to shoot him. You expect that going into the job. But nobody tells you oh, hey, you're also going to probably do CPR on a kid while they die in your hands, and those are the ones that actually, end up having the lasting effect on you. I can't tell you the guy's name that I chased, but I'll always remember the girl's name, and I won't say it on here, obviously, but that's etched into my memory forever. And in fact, when I was off on my injury, I had taken some pain pills, because that's of course the answer, right? Oh, you have a herniated disc in your back, Norco, like
right.
that'll solve the problem. So I'm taking all these Norcos, and I'm sleeping, and I'm having a nightmare apparently, and my former wife tells me that she woke up and I'm literally in tears, and I'm crying, and I'm like yelling, and I'm trying to do CPR on a pillow, and I'm trying to get this pillow back to life, right? Which was obviously this little girl that I had, tried to save, and it failed, right? And what a lot of people don't recognize with law enforcement when they talk about, call you pigs, and that's what I get all the time, and you're a dirty cop and you're a tyrant and all this stuff, is like they don't realize that we're also out there. I say we, that's former me, is out there, trying to also just help people and save lives, right? Medically, not anything to do with trying to take a bad guy to jail. That call specifically, I'll never forget it, because we got a call that there was a neighbor called in, said he saw that the neighbor girl was floating in the pool, and he was actually a firefighter, which was great. He runs down, and he's actually running through the gate as I'm pulling up. I was right in the area, so I hop out of the car, and as I'm getting in the backyard, he had just grabbed her out of the pool, and he's yelling at me to help him do CPR, and we're doing it on basically an outdoor barbecue, like a countertop next to the barbecue. And it was so challenging for me, because my daughter was 2 at the time, and this girl was 2, and this girl was a little light-haired girl, looked like she could be my daughter. And so it was the first time I had that like connection with somebody right in front of me that like made me think of my own life, right? Like usually I was pretty good about compartmentalizing what I'm doing, and this is work and this is home. They're different. And it was just such a crazy moment, because I start doing CPR on her with the neighbor, and I can tell, she's already expired. I knew that she wasn't going to be coming back.
Right.
She was blue, and but I feel something tug on my leg, and I look down, and it's her, and I'm on scene, and I'm thinking, I literally thought I just lost it. Diaper, shirtless, same girl, and I'm like. And I just freak out, and the firefighter neighbor guy tells me, "Oh, it's your sister, like twins or whatever."
Right.
And I'm like, for a second, I literally thought I had a mental breakdown. Like I thought I was seeing like a ghost next to me, and I'm like, "What just happened?" And and that was honestly one of the hardest calls that I had, because right after that, I'm covered in water from her, lifeless body and stuff, and we're trying to get her saved, and finally the ambulance gets there, and they take her out of there, and then I'm standing inside, and mom comes in, and everybody's just disheveled, right? I mean, how do you handle that? And dad was home with 4 kids, mom was at work, and she comes home, and grandpa was there, and apparently had unlatched the back door to smoke, and they had a lock up there for the kids so they didn't go out to the pool. Dad's putting the youngest away, and little girl goes out right next to the pool, falls in, and that's what happened. And so now we have this family there. Well, one of the other officers, it was his beat, he patrolled that area. He comes on, and so he's going to take the case, and they say, "Hey man, you're good, you can clear." So I walk out to my patrol car, and I get inside the patrol car, and I'm thinking, how do I needed a second just to breathe. Well, a priority call comes out, and they say, "Hey, come over the radio, can you clear? Can you go to this thing?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I guess, sure." So, I just try to save this girl's life. I know that she's probably not going to make it, but she's being transported, so I have some hope. And so I go driving down the street, and I'm going to this next call, and it's a 5150 call. So it's somebody who's either a danger to themselves or someone else, and it's, 17-year-old kid telling his parents that he's going to kill himself. So I'm like, oh, my God, here we go. So I get there. And I'm thinking, man, here's another kid who's going to be going through something psychological. Hopefully this is somebody I can help. No, it was just some turd kid telling his dad that he wanted to go spend the night at his girlfriend's house at 17. His dad says, "No, you're not doing that." And he is throwing a tantrum at 17 years old and tells his dad he's going to kill himself. So now all of a sudden I have to change from being this guy who just did CPR on somebody who I don't think is going to make it. And I got to listen to this kid cry and talk about how he wants to spend that at his girlfriend's house. And I'm trying not to just lose it. You know, I just feel I'm so angered at this point in time. So I'm like, why am I even here at this point? You know, in my mind, that's what I'm thinking. And I hear over the radio, they come over and they say that she died in the hospital. And I just remember, you know, just like being filled with like rage, you know, because I'm like, there was nothing I could do to save her. And then I'm expected to just jump over to this call and just be this completely different person, right? And just clear calls for the rest of the night. And, you know, and it was just such a tough moment for me that really, that was the first time ever I questioned, like, do I even want to do this career?
Right.
You know, like, is this really what I want to do? I love going after the bad guys, but, you know, hey, no one told me about this, you know, and that's something that not enough people know about that cops go through on a regular basis. So even though, you know, I, you know, don't have the best reputation with them anymore, that's something I'll still always respect, because it's a tough job, you know, and that's the tough part of the job. The rest of it's fun, you know, but that part of it, it's terrible, you know, when you have victims like that. So I had started a social media page back in like 2018, and it was a fitness page, right? Of course, I was enhanced using anabolic steroids at the time. And so I was trying to compete in bodybuilding, you know, that's where I'd kind of spawned into. And the amount of shit that I got from the PD was ridiculous. And trust me, I'm one of those guys, like, I love good banter. Like, let's make fun of each other. But they were trying to get me in trouble, right? Yeah. If I posted something that was inappropriate to their standards, they would print it on the lieutenant's printer. So that way it would be in their office. So that way they could go walk in and see it. And it's like, so they started, you know, writing me up for, you know, my social media account, even though I was following policy. But I started getting some traction with it. I was training with some big names in bodybuilding, like Jay Cutler, really famous guy. You know, I'm getting sent to the Arnold Classic, and I'm at all these fitness expos. And so I was actually starting to take off. I had Ellen DeGeneres' show reach out to me about like an interview. Which was so random, right? Like, out of everybody, that was who reaches out. But so I had all these like random, you know, opportunities starting to arise from social media, and they hated it. Yeah. Like, they wanted to shut it down because they saw me doing well. And so they just started writing me up for everything. I'm just trying to promote, you know, the message of be fit. You're a fucking police officer. You're going to have to save people's lives. If you don't go do this, if you don't take care of yourself, how can you take care of anybody else, right? Right. And that's part of the job, right? So, and it's crazy to me because in, you know, the academy, they have a standard, and you have to adhere to that standard to graduate. And then after that, you can go be as fat as you want, you know, out of shape. And that's why we see so many disgusting cops out there. So I'm promoting that. And of course, all the upper echelon in the agency that are targeting me are, you can imagine what they look like, right? You know, hanging over their duty belt. And so they're trying to get me to shut down my page, which eventually I do, because this is my leading source of income. I keep getting written up for things. So I'm finally like, all right, I've had enough of this. I'm gonna leave the PD. Like, I'm gonna go transfer somewhere else. So I apply with Anaheim PD down in Southern California. And great PD to work for. They looked at my Instagram and loved it. They were like, dude, we love this. We have a full we have social media guys for our marketing team, you know, with our agency. And they're like, you'd be a great fit for it. So it's crazy. One agency wants to destroy me for it. One agency's like, hell yeah, promote it. So I end up taking a conditional offer with them, and my agency, Antioch, throws me into a last-minute internal affairs investigation, right? And you can't lateral when you're in IA. And so I remember calling them out, and I'm like, so you guys, you write me up for everything. Right. You don't want me here. Really, like, you clearly don't like me to leave. But then I try to leave.
You just want to destroy me.
Yeah, you just want to, like, what is the point of this? Why not just let me go? I'm trying to leave this agency. Well, you know, long story short, they tell Anaheim, hey, we'll get him through this IA really quick. It's a stupid complaint. It's nothing. And then he can lateral down. So they gave me like a 3-month window to make it. Antioch left me in the IA for almost a year. Never let me go. So I had to just continue working. And then I became disgruntled. So one of the things that bothered me was one of the cops had made, he was actually a sergeant, and he had made a comment that, you know, based on my social media page, he was like, oh, I thought we were hiring cops, not male models, right? And
just jealous.
Jealous. And I'm like, dude, you know, mind you, I have, you know, been involved in an officer-involved shooting. I was very proactive as a police officer. There were many months I had the leading number of felony arrests. And I had seen plenty of bad things through my career where it was like, hey, I'm trying to do something good from this career, not all bad. And but a lot of officers, they just want to live in that misery, right? So they target anybody who's doing something else that's productive. And I noticed that it was very common. Anytime somebody was doing a side hustle of some sort, it was frowned upon. They wanted you to give everything to the agency. So unfortunately, that's kind of what I did. So I just slumped back into it. But then I stopped applying for things. I wasn't applying for the SWAT team. I wasn't doing anything. And because I really had given this agency, everything I could.
Can I ask you a quick question? What was the IA investigation? What was the complaint?
So there was a gentleman who was taken into custody, and he had to be placed into a wrap, it's basically a restraint device, right? And huge man, like 285 pounds, massive. So the officer who arrests him, he's taken him to jail, and he's in this wrap because he's being combative. And he actually is strong enough, he kicks the door literally through to where the door opens up on the highway. And he starts trying to scoot out of the back of the patrol car. So this, the officer who's transporting him puts out over the radio, hey, this guy's basically getting out of the wrap. I need assistance. So all of us show up. So I show up, California Highway Patrol shows up, the sheriff's office shows up, because, he's not in our city anymore, but I was the closest car. So we get out there. All these cops have body cams. Everybody's standing there. Because he's a big guy, I offer to go help get him back up and carry him into the patrol car. I carry him into the patrol car, and I get back in mine. I had a ride along with me, and we take off. We leave. That was it. Well, apparently, he was initially being placed on a 5150 hold. He comes back and makes
Which is what, like mental?
Yeah, either a danger to self or others, right?
Okay.
So you want to either kill yourself or you're going to hurt other people. So usually it's a medical hold. But because he started fighting with medical personnel, he ends up getting arrested. So he goes in, makes a complaint, and says that I threatened to kill him or whatever it was. Made some just irrational statement that couldn't have even happened because there's all these body cameras. And,
right.
I had a 2-second interaction by carrying, I think, his feet. And so that IA didn't even exist before I was applying down to Anaheim because I had checked. I called up to the chief's assistant and said, hey, do I have any active IAs? I'm just curious, right now. And she was like, nope, nothing's pending. You're good. So I was like, all right. So that's when I knew I was okay to lateral out of there. And all of a sudden, I told my agency at 10 p.m. I was working graveyard. I got called in around 4:45 in the morning, I remember, by the IA sergeant, who didn't like me, by the way. And he tells me, we had this complaint, it's nothing big, but we didn't know. So we just kind of left it. It's not a big deal, but yeah, you have an IA. So I'm like, oh, that's convenient. Right when I tell you guys that I'm leaving, now I have this IA pop up. Right. And so I was pretty upset about it. And, he was also the same one that wrote me up for having, my badge inside the pictures, which I had blurred out. And he said, oh, you can't do that. And I'm like, I have zero representation.
Right.
But then I went on his page where he was posting pictures with himself in his uniform being promoted. Right. And that was okay, apparently. But because mine is more viral or known, apparently. So I guess it depends on who you are, right?
Yeah.
So it was clearly they were just targeting me on every aspect that they could, writing me up for the dumbest things after that, having the wrong numbered shotgun in my car. Yet people would forget a shotgun and they don't get written up. I'm like, is this even a policy? Like we need a shotgun in the car. I didn't know we have to match the little tag to it. I don't think that should.
Right.
Some sergeant got happy with a glue gun and put those on, and suddenly now I'm, so all these little write-ups were coming up, and it was really, they were just trying to, get me in trouble in any way that they could. But it was such petty stuff. And eventually they kind of eased off because I just accepted that I'm going to get rid of my page. I'm just going to go back to working patrol, but I'm not going to be the same cop, and I'm just going to
do the minimum.
Yeah, I'll do the minimum. I'll sit in a corner. If that's what you guys want from me, then that's what you'll get. And then suddenly I'm left alone. It was funny how that happened. And at that time, I was really, really interested in bodybuilding. So I started taking it very serious with like the ultimate goals, right? Like I'm one of those guys, if I go into something, I try and do it all. So I was like, I'm going to stand on the Olympia stage. I'm going to be a professional bodybuilder. I'll probably make millions of dollars doing it, which is not what happened, right? But that was the goal. And so I took it really, really serious. I was, eating all my meals in my car. I was prepping everything. I'm doing it the right way. And I get massive. I'm getting so big. And I'm walking around at like 250 pounds. Mind you, right now I'm probably 210 to 15 pounds.
Right.
So I'm like 250, no body fat on me. I'm trying to wear like big clothes to kind of hide out. Mm-hmm. But everybody in the PD knew that I was on steroids. Yeah. In fact, everybody would ask me for advice on the steroids they would take. Right. So anabolic steroids they're not uncommon in service-related fields, whether that's military, law enforcement, fire, they're everywhere, right? There was always jokes about them with me. And so I'm going through that process and, I have a coach, I'm, paying good money to do this. The only one who really appreciated it at the time was my chief, to be honest with you. He loved the look. Yeah. And so, and of course, when it benefited other sergeants and stuff, if somebody was combative, they'd say, hey, send Harris. Right. Right. And I would show up and people would just sit down. It was the best deterrent ever. I never used force when I was huge on anabolic steroids. Never. I would walk up and people would be like, I know why you're here. I'm going to sit down. Yep. Got me. And it happened every single time. So it was a tool that was an asset and it was used frequently. And my chief approached me and was like, hey, we have this every 5 years, roughly, they allow an RTO to go to the academy, which is like where I met my RTO, right? Now, some time had passed. It was a little bit over that. But this kind of full circle thing was coming back where I had this opportunity to go be an RTO at the academy, which essentially the way it is the sheriff's office runs the police academy, and then they hire in, or they bring in, neighboring police agencies to have a guest RTO for a class, right? So it was our turn with the county, and so my chief said, hey, I think you'd be a great representation with us with your military background, your look, obviously, like you look good to send to the academy. So they send me over there, and I love it. Honestly, one of the most fun positions I've ever had in my life. You're never angry because you just get to yell at people all day for fun and make fun of them, and they can't even say anything back. I get to be the keyboard warrior on Instagram. And so I loved it. It was the most rewarding position I've ever had because you're taking these recruits and you're watching them grow. And then I started doing a bunch of stuff with them there. I was doing academy instruction. I was teaching, active shooter. I was teaching defensive tactics, all kinds of stuff. And so loved my time at the academy. But I still had always been hindering that back injury that I received in 2017. And it just never went away. Fast forward now where it's 2019. 2 years later, I'm at the academy, and it's given me a little bit of issues, but nothing crazy. And in June 2020, I'm kind of finishing up my time at the academy, talking to my chief, about coming back, and he's asking me about if I'm going to be applying for promotion. So I see like things happening in the future of my career, and I'm pretty excited about it, obviously. And so I'm at the academy, I'm cleaning up the storage shed, and I grab this dumbest way to go out on injury, but I grab this 170-pound dummy that looks like a human that they use for the dummy drag in the test. Yeah. And I pick it up and I twist to go drop it over and get that same feeling, drop on my drop to my knee, my back goes out, and I can instantly tell, okay, this one's really bad. Yeah. But I just talked to my chief about maybe promotion and things like that. So I'm like, this is the worst timing ever. I don't want to miss this opportunity. So I go into the office and, I was working with a partner in there and she's like, are you all right? And I'm like, no, something's up with my back. That dummy got me. As embarrassing as that is, worst way to go out. Right. And, so I go back and I'm literally laying on the floor in the office and I'm in excruciating pain. I can barely walk. We wait for all the recruits to leave so they can't see me. And then 2 of the deputies help literally carry me to my truck. And I drive straight to the ER. I get out of my truck, yet again, pee my pants with no alcohol in my system, which should be the only time that happens. And I'm laying on the concrete in the parking lot at the hospital, and I'm just like looking up, just like wondering what I've done wrong in life, right? And a nurse sees me, gets a wheelchair, wheels me in. We end up getting an MRI, and I have like a 13 millimeter herniation in my lumbar spine. So they're like, hey, this is horrible. Right. So I'm like, okay, well, I have vacation. I've I've dealt with this in the past. I've gotten over it. I'm just going to relax for a week or so and I'll be back. I'm not even working patrol right now. When I go back, maybe I can promote and life will get a little easier. Who knows? So I try to like hide it for about a week. And finally I say, I call my PD. It's not getting better. And I'm like, hey, this back injury got me again. This is what happened. So we submit the claim and they deny it. All right. So I'm like, okay, well, this is not good.
Deny it in what way?
They say that we don't think that the injury is work related, even though I had a 2017 injury that was still open on the exact same spot.
Right.
So it should have never been denied. But they say, you know what? We don't think so. So we're going to deny the claim. You're going to have to do a QME, which is a qualified medical exam, right? Which means you go see a doctor and then they make the determination on whether or not it's, valid or not. Of course, that takes months and months and months. So I end up going to absent without pay. I've burned through all of my sick time. I've burned through everything. I have, a wife at the time who didn't work, and we have 2 kids. We were actually separated at the time, so I'm living in a separate house and paying 2 mortgages, right? And just burning through my savings. Luckily, I was always good with money and had done some stuff in real estate, so I had, a couple $100,000 saved at the time, so I was able to survive for a while. But as we all know, that goes relatively quick, especially in California with 2 mortgages and 2 lives. So I'm watching my savings just dwindle away, and I get down to almost next to zero. And I had a pending application for my military disability that I had never fully submitted. So I finally just said, okay, I'm going to submit that, see what happens. I submit it, and I come back at 90% disabled. They bump it to 100%. So I get all this back pay, and it kind of saves me, right? And so financially, I'm barely hanging on. This is COVID time, so, my kids aren't in school. Life is just crazy around the world, well, especially in California. And so, I have to get an attorney finally to get my claim approved, and I end up getting it approved. And the doctor looks at me, and she's like, "What is wrong with your neck?" I'm like, I don't know. I've had issues with it since this thing, but they said I'm fine. She's like, "No, you're definitely not fine. There's something wrong with your neck. I want you to get an MRI." Okay, so I go get an MRI, CT, whatever it was, and they look and they say, "Holy shit, dude, your neck is destroyed." So I go meet with a surgeon. They're like, "You're literally, like, you fall off the curb, you're going to be paralyzed from the neck down." And so I've been walking around with this, but I was getting all these weird head pains and stuff like that, and my hand would stop working on my right side and just random things. So I just figured, maybe I pulled something, one of those, drink some water and you'll be fine. And they're like, "No, this is not fine." They're like, "You need surgery, like, pretty much now." And by this time, I'd already been off work for, I went off in 2020, June of 2020. I didn't have my surgery until August of 2021. So I'd been off over a year, went probably 6-7 months absent without pay, finally got the claim approved. So mind you, I'm walking around with this while they deny my claim,
right,
seconds away from probably being paralyzed from the neck down. I end up going in, I get a cervical spine fusion. So I have a plate and 6 screws in my neck here. So they had to pull out 2 of my discs in there and then bone graft and kind of rebuild me. And
what do? They go through your, They go through here?
Yeah, right through here. So you can see the scar here that cuts across.
Barely.
Yeah, he did a great job.
Yeah.
And they put it in the fold. He says, he's like, the older you get, the wrinkles will fill in. And
yeah.
They're coming quicker than I'd like. But yeah, so he did a great job. Phenomenal surgery. The problem was the level above it is already impacted and it's already compromised. So I'm going to have to go in for another one here relatively soon. But what had happened is because of that, I went off on my lower back, right? So now I'm getting no treatment on my lower back. So now years goes by and I'm like, hey guys, I still have this lower back thing where I'm in severe pain and we haven't done anything with it. I'm battling this claim. I'm trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Like, are we going to settle me? Am I going to go back to work? Am I not going back to work? So I sit down with the doctor and he tells me, hey man, I don't know how to tell you this, but you're never going to be a police officer again. And I had just kind of accepted the facts. I just got my 100% in the military. I told you I always wanted to be a Green Beret.
Yeah.
Well, when my ex-wife and me, when we had separated at that time, I had this weird moment in my life where I'm like, you know what, I'm going to go back and I'm going to rejoin. I'm going to go get that, long tab, the Special Forces tab, and I'm going to fulfill that goal. And then I get 100%, which means I'm never going back. So it was really a tough pill to swallow. I needed the disability because it it saved me financially, and but it also took away like my dream I've had since I was literally a little kid. And so that sucked. And then I go in, I'm like, well, at least I still have law enforcement. I get told, no, you're done. You're out. You're never going to be a cop again. So I obviously before this, I'd been using a lot of anabolic steroids for bodybuilding, and I just got depressed. I cut off all steroids, which is the worst thing that you can possibly do. Crashed my hormones, and I'm laying in bed after my surgery. I'm wearing a vice on my neck for 3 months, and I'm watching Vikings, and I start crying because somebody dies. I'm thinking like, holy shit, dude, something's not right with my hormones. Like, why am I Vikings? I'm crying. This is weird. And
Olaf died.
Yeah, exactly. I'm freaking out, and so I was like, all right, I need to go get my levels checked and my testosterone levels, right? So I call my doctor. I get set up with an endocrinologist. I get some blood work done. And I go in, and my total testosterone, and I'm like a huge nerd when it comes to like anabolics and stuff like that. Yeah. So excuse me if I kind of get off on that. But I go in, and my testosterone levels are 56.
Oh, they should be between what, 5 and
250? Yeah, they say 250 and 1200.
Right.
Which is ridiculous.
It's a
huge gap, right?
Yeah.
So, and what they're saying essentially is it's like if yours is 251 and mine's 1150, we're both normal.
Yeah,
but I get to live a 10 times more quality life than you do.
Yeah.
That's bullshit, So I go into this doctor, and I'm like, hey, I'm 56. This is like, I'm like a 13-year-old girl right now.
Right.
Literally, that's why I'm crying with Vikings. So let's get me squared away. Let's get me some TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, right? And she goes, oh, no. Now you're fine. This is just a result from the surgery that you had 3 months ago. Your testosterone's just low. It'll bounce back. And I'm like,
yeah, I need another doctor.
Yeah, so I'm like, look, you clearly don't understand how this works,
right,
even though you're an endocrinologist, so I'm going to tell you how it works. I told her I used and abused anabolic steroids, which I don't produce testosterone anymore.
Right.
So I ended up having to pay for it, and I got it through a prescription. And they bounced me back, and I'm feeling good again. So, I've now lost the military dream. I've lost the law enforcement dream. My purpose is literally into the trash. Before that back injury, I had trained 3 years for one show that I was going to do, which COVID pushed it out. Then I got injured, never got to do the bodybuilding show. So I'm like, literally everything that I was trying to do in my life is just been taken from me. And, of course I'm a dad, they're my priority, but as a man, I feel like we still need like our own sense of purpose. We need something that we can do for ourselves. Right. And, so I just, I get super depressed, and I'm like, well, you know what? I'll just bodybuild anyways. So I jump right back on a bunch of anabolic steroids, and I make arguably one of the craziest, like 3-month transformations after a neck surgery. And I blow up, jacked, shredded, look great, feel great, because anabolic steroids do work. That's why athletes use them. They will repair you and they'll build you back up. I'm taking, human growth hormone to try and speed up recovery, investing a lot of money into this stuff. And, so I make this decision. All right, well, I can't be a cop anymore. So I'm going to have to move. And, all the military stuff's gone. So where can I live with 100% disability? So I started looking what states didn't have property taxes for that.
Right.
And it was down to, Hawaii, which just wasn't going to happen. Florida, which was a high contender, and then Texas. And the real reason I went with Texas was just because of the schools for my kids. So I'm like, all right, going to move to Texas, going to start a new life there. I'm going to have these 2 retirements. Like my retirement for the military is, with schools like $5,000 or whatever a month. It's pretty decent.
Yeah.
Enough to pay some bills. And then I was going to be getting a medical retirement through law enforcement, which was also tax-free, which was going to be upwards of between $6,000 and $7,000 a month. And it with a 2.5% increase every year for the rest of my life, right?
Right.
And then, you get the COLA increase on the VA too. So I'm like, realistically, I probably never have to work again. I had a couple houses in California at the time, so maybe $300,000-$400,000 in equity between the two. I'm looking at buying a house in Texas, which is obviously a lot cheaper than California. So I'm like, this is perfect. I can move, I can live, I can coach my kid. I don't have to work again. I can actually be a present father for all these years that I haven't been from, working in law enforcement. And so I finally wrapped my head around it and I accept it. So I fly out to Texas. I end up finding a property. I put an offer in on it. and I'm told, hey, you just got to get your medical retirement done or whatever, and everything will be great. So March 1st, 2022, I am labeled as permanent and stationary through law enforcement, which means I can never work again.
Right.
So, okay, I get my packet together. I'm submitting for that retirement that's going to pay me. I got my house finally closed in Texas. I pack up all my stuff. I drive out to Texas first week of March, right around that time. And I'm ecstatic. I finally have accepted, okay, this will be my new life. And I'm good with it. I finally was getting some purpose back in me. I saw life working out. And 22 days later, I get raided by the FBI, and my whole world obviously just gets completely flipped upside down. So, I'm in Texas, and my ex-wife and kids are in California, and I have a house in both, right? And my goal was I was going to go to Texas. I was going to renovate the property that I was buying because it needed a full renovation, which is I had experience doing from my personal endeavors. And then I would get that done. Family could move to Texas, and then I could go back to California, renovate that property, and then because it was like a rental basically, and then sell it. And then I would have the equity from that too. So I'm like, okay, everything's great. This will work out. So I get to Texas, I'm working on the property, and it's completely gutted. I have like an upstairs room, which was just a big room, like no bathroom, no nothing, just an upstairs room. Right. And I'm living up there. I have like a hot plate plugged in. I'm like cooking eggs on it because I have no kitchen. I have no bathrooms in the house. I'm driving to Planet Fitness to use the bathroom and to take my showers at nighttime. And just getting this renovation done. I hire in a contractor to come in, help with demo and stuff like that. So I have a team out there. Well, I'm standing upstairs, March 22nd, or I think that was the day, 2022. And they're downstairs working, doing demolition. And I hear these two like loud bangs. And I think, oh shit, they just hit some sort of electrical something in the house. So I go running downstairs expecting to see these guys in here working, and they hit something in a wall or something, and the house is empty. And mind you, my house is like empty. I mean, we're concrete floors. There's wires hanging. There's walls are ripped down, like nothing there. Right. And there's plastic all over the windows, so I can't even see outside. But my front door is wide open, and I kind of peek around the corner, and I see my contractor, who is proned out, laying on the ground right out in front of the house, and I'm like, "Fuck, are you doing?"
Right.
And that's when I start to all of a sudden take everything in, and I hear the intercom, "Daniel Harris, this is the FBI. Come out with your hands up." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" So I look, I'm like, "What did you guys do?" I thought that one of the guys working there must have been in trouble or had a warrant. And he's like, "No, they're here for you, man." And he's looking back, yelling at me, telling me this. And I'm like, it can't be for me. Like, I'm one of them. Like, they're not here for me. I didn't do anything wrong. So I go walking outside, and fucking my mind was blown. Like, I couldn't believe what I was met with. First off, the bangs I heard were them launching mortars of flashbangs from the street. I have a big front yard, it's Texas, right? And launching them towards my house to try and, disrupt, get my attention, I guess. And I look out, there is up armored vehicle, SWAT sniper. There's 2 full SWAT teams. The road is lined with FBI, sheriffs, city, everybody's there. And I'm almost just like in disbelief, like this can't be real. Like this has to be a joke. It can't.
Right.
For one, why are they here? So I think there's got to be something else. So they call me out high risk, and obviously not a position I'm used to being in. But I hands up, I comply with everything they do. They throw me up against a car, throw me in handcuffs, and I'm just being like manhandled. I look over, and all the guys working on the house are on the ground. One of the guys is bleeding. It turns out he's outside when he sees all these up armored vehicles coming down. So he does what any guy who's working in construction probably does. He tries to run. So he takes off, they tackle him, and so that's what happened to him. But I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, there's got to be something. So I'm sitting in the back of this patrol car, and now I'm watching FBI SWAT dismantle from these up armored vehicles and force entry into my house and go clear the house. And I'm like, what? You know, something's got to be off. And I'm looking out, and I can hear them over the intercom, and they're calling a name out in the house that I don't recognize. And I'm like, okay, so this isn't for me. They're looking for somebody who's in my. I'm like, shit, is someone living in my attic or something that I don't know about? And I'm confused as can be. And they come up, and I'll never forget this little FBI agent, short little guy, and just pompous as can be, right? And he looks at me, and he's like, you know why we're here? And I'm like, I have no fucking idea why you're here, but clearly it has to do with somebody that's in the house or my truck. And he goes, no, that's the name from the truck. And I go, okay. So now I'm thinking, maybe did I hit somebody?
That's the what? Name?
That's the name from the truck, because I just bought that truck before I moved there.
Oh, okay.
So when they ran the plate, there was a name still registered to the truck. So I go, oh, maybe that guy's wanted.
Right.
You know, so now I'm like, okay, this is falling. This is all the pieces are coming together. And I'm like, this makes sense
that
now.
guy's in trouble.
That guy. Yeah, you guys are looking for him. That's not me. That's the truck. I bought this from a guy in Roseville in California, you know? And they're like, no. And he's kind of like shaking his head, and he literally laughs at me. And I'm like, fuck is so funny? And he goes, you don't know why we're here? And I'm like, no. He's like, do steroids ring a bell? Word for word. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I was like, steroids? You're here for steroids.
Right.
And I start laughing. Like, probably the worst thing that I could do, right?
Right. Well,
but I'm like, give me a break, bro.
Well, I don't understand why.
Yeah. I'm like, well, okay. So they finish doing what they're doing. He doesn't ask me any more questions, just shuts the door back on me. Okay. So then he gets me out of the car, and I'm still in handcuffs, and walks me into the house. And we're sitting in the house, and of course there's 20 SWAT members in there. There's, you know, M4 rifles everywhere. Everybody, I'm like, okay, this is insane.
Must be a slow week.
Slow week, yeah. And of course, like, welcome to the neighborhood, right? Like, I'd been there for 2 weeks, and all my neighbors, it's a retirement neighborhood. I'm the youngest guy in the neighborhood. So I'm like, well, this is going to go great for me. And I'm already like, fuck, I got to move already. I just got here. And so I'm still convinced there has to be a mistake. There's something that can't be right here. But I'm under arrest, in my opinion, right? I mean, I think anybody would believe they're under arrest. Like, I'm wearing handcuffs. You guys just blew my house up. You got SWAT vehicles everywhere. There's drones flying in the air. I mean, they're in the backside of my property. They're everywhere. And now you're questioning me. So detention and interrogation, you know, I had a little experience in there. That's called an arrest.
Yeah.
So they asked me all these questions for like 25, 30 minutes. And they're asking all kinds of stuff. You know, do you know about cops robbing drug dealers? Do you know about this cop, like naming cops I've never heard of from other agencies? And I'm like, no, I don't, what the hell are you talking about? So then they finally get to me where they're like, well, what about you with steroids? And I'm like, yeah, I've used steroids.
Right.
Who cares?
Right.
Like, it's steroids. In my opinion, that's what I'm thinking. Like, again, like I said earlier, I operated heavily on spirit of the law, not letter of the law. So in my mind, there's no victim with this. What are steroids? Who cares? Are they even illegal? I'm thinking in my head, like, truthfully, but you know, they're Schedule 3. But so he's like, nope. This is, you know, you were going to sell steroids to this guy, and he pulls out all these text messages, and he shows me this document, and it's literally like screenshots of text messages, and I'm like, how the hell did they get this? Like, this is weird to me.
What's the FBI?
Yeah, it's the FBI. They can get whatever they want. But I'm thinking in my head, like, man, you guys didn't download my phone or anything like that. But, you know, obviously iCloud downloads, right?
Right.
So they had downloaded a bunch of stuff through their warrant, and they're like, oh, nope, you know, steroid sales and this and that. And then they go, oh, and, you know, you committed bank fraud, you know, buying this house. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, you altered a document, and you lied about a rental agreement. And I'm like, okay, but I altered the document, and I'm still answering questions because I know I'm not under Miranda. And I'm like, so anything you guys are getting out of me right now is bullshit. You guys have arrested me. You're asking me these questions. You haven't read me any rights.
Right.
So I'm going to answer everything you want because it's all going to be thrown out in court anyways. So I just keep answering all their questions. And they're saying, you know, bank fraud. They're like saying all this stuff, and I'm literally confused. Like, they're just throwing all this shit at me like I'm Pablo Escobar. And you know, they're searching through my house, and finally I had enough. And I'm like, hey man, are you guys going to Mirandize me or what? And they're like, oh, no, you're not under arrest. I'm like, what do you mean I'm not under arrest? I'm sitting in a metal folding chair surrounded by armed police officers. And I'm like, I feel like I'm fucking under arrest right now, guys.
Right.
And they go, no, you're free to go. And I go, I'm free to go right now. Like, yep. So I go to stand up. Everybody kind of crowds in. I was like, I don't really feel like I'm free to go right now. And they're like, well, you know, we're just here for your phone and to search the house. And I'm like, oh, you could have knocked on the door. I would have gave you the phone, you know, whatever. So they're like, well, we need to open your phone. You know, this says that we can just give us your passcode. I'm like,
if I have to give you my passcode, that's not really opening my phone.
I'm like, no, I don't want to give you the passcode for my phone. And they go, well, why not? Don't you want to cooperate with us? And I'm like,
at this point,
I'm like,
you probably would have got cooperation if you'd knocked on the door.
100%. If they would have just knocked on the door, I'd been like, here, open it up, give them anything they want. Because I would have never thought that steroids would have done anything impeccable, you know? And so I'm like, nah, I don't think I'm comfortable with giving you my phone. They're like, well, you know, the snooty guy, same thing. He goes, oh, well, it doesn't matter because we can have your biometrics. And I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, it says it in the warrant. So he's like, look at it. And he goes to swipe it up and he points it at my face, right? And little does he know I don't have my face in there. Like, so I'm like sitting there doing this and he's like, you need to stop moving so we can get this to work. And we do it for like 3 minutes. He's just looking like a clown at this point, honestly. And I'm like, look, man, I don't have that set up. And he's like, oh, so he's pissed off. Now, I say this with respect. Everybody else was respectful.
Right.
And I respect law enforcement. So I was respectful to everybody else. But this guy was just such an asshole, for lack of better words. He was just rude and not nice. And it's like, you don't need to be this way. You know, it's like
I think he was related to the FBI agent that arrested me.
Probably.
Candace Calderon, by the way.
I don't know what it is about them, but they're
arrogant, and that's how they
very. And he was just, you know, and he tells me, you know, during his I guess consensual interview with me, he tells me, he's like, well, I mean, you're going to deny that you take steroids? And I'm like, no, I'll tell you straight up I take steroids. And he's like, well, because you can't deny it. And I'm like, yeah,
I just said
I know I take steroids.
Right.
And he's like, well, I mean, I wish I looked like you. And I'm like,
take steroids.
Yeah, I'm like, you could look like me. Yeah. And there was a FBI SWAT dude over there clearly on steroids. I can spot him a mile away. And I'm like, just get him to give you his cycle. He'll tell you. I mean, he can hook you up. And he's like, oh shit. Yeah. He kind of steps off to the side. And so I'm just laughing. When they were when the FBI agent was asking me, you know, how to get like big and stuff like that, or I wish I looked like you, right? The other guy, I noticed he laid down his card at the end, and he was a city cop, but he was on a task force with the FBI helping serve this warrant. And I looked down and I noticed that the card that he leaves me is Arlington Police Department. And I'll tell you why that makes me laugh is because, are you familiar with Ronnie Coleman?
The bodybuilder?
The bodybuilder.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's a massive bodybuilder, okay? And he got his fame. He was a police officer for Arlington PD.
Okay.
And he's like, you know, donates money to the police department, I've heard there's photos of him in there, like other cops have told me this. He's like famous for being this 300-pound mass monster as a police officer who was clearly taking an astronomical amount of steroids while working as a police officer, competing in the biggest bodybuilding shows in the entire world. So I just like, I looked at the guy, and I remember I'm holding this card just right before they walked out, and I'm like, Arlington PD, huh? And he looks at me and he kind of shakes his head and he's like, yeah, I was curious if you were going to catch that. I was like, oh, yeah, I couldn't miss it. I was like, Ronnie Coleman, huh? And he's like, yeah. And what was cool was when kind of all the dust settled, he was the last one left, and he came up and he was like, hey, man, this is ridiculous. Gave me a fist bump and was like, good luck, bro, and took off. But I wanted to get that in there because it's just a funny thing that Ronnie Coleman's agency was raiding me for anabolic steroids. Like, I'm like, this is ridiculous. But I mean, like, really, because I really thought, like, this can't be anything serious. Like, this is going to end up just going, nobody cares about this. And so I tell him that, and, you know, at that point, I'm almost trying to make the best out of the situation that I'm in, because I'm like, well, you guys have already, you know, ruined my fucking day. So, you know, I'm going to make yours hard now too. So I tell him, yeah, if you want my passcode, like, what are you offering me? Just what do you got for me? Because clearly I'm in trouble for something. You're saying I'm not under arrest, but you won't tell me what I'm in trouble for other than I've taken steroids? I'm like, that's a misdemeanor. So what are we really talking about? And so
what about the sale where he's trying to say they've got you on a sale? Was that somebody you were going to sell some steroids to, or you were just passing them on?
Yeah. So we had text messages in there, and it said, so I had who ended up kind of being like my co-defendant, who I ended up testifying against. He basically was getting an anabolic steroid from me, testosterone, for his buddy. Now, we have millions of messages, literally, not millions, but we have a lot of messages between the two of us and his buddy where I'm saying, bro, you probably don't need this, especially what you're doing. His friend was trying to go through the Special Forces Q course to be a Green Beret, which he ended up successfully doing. And he wanted testosterone. And I said, dude, you're 40, just go get a prescription.
Yeah.
You don't need it from me.
Yeah.
And plus, you're going to be able to take your prescription with you through the Q course. But I was like, you're going to be in the field. There's no point for you to take testosterone illegally. Right. Because you're going to try and hide it. Just go get the prescription. Like, I had a prescription too. I was like, just go get that. And he just didn't want to do it, I guess, for whatever reason. He didn't want it messing with his medical. I don't know. But so finally I'm like, yeah, whatever, dude. I'll give you a bottle of testosterone. If that's what you really want, no big deal. Well, I never even give him the bottle of testosterone. We just talked about it.
Right.
So
there was no sale.
The sale didn't even actually happen for that. Now, the other guy, I had given him something in the past. I gave him some testosterone in the past, but that was already long gone and, whatever. No proof of sale even there. So I'm like, okay. So I'm looking at this FBI agent. I'm like, yeah, okay. So, yeah, I was going to give somebody a bottle of testosterone. I didn't. So what's the problem here? I'm really confused with where you guys are going. They searched my house. They find I had a bottle, 2 bottles of prescription testosterone and $300 cash. So, I was...
Yeah,
Pablo Escobar, like I said.
Yeah, your sale, your steroid sales is lacking.
Right. I'm not doing well. And then my house in California, where my ex-wife and my kids are, they raid that house at the same time, right? And so, but they did it nicer because they knew that I was here.
Yeah.
But there was a whole bunch of us. There was, I don't know how many cops initially got raided, but it was like a lot. A lot of police officers.
Was a lot like 5 or was a lot like 30?
Like 30.
Okay.
Yeah, like a bunch of people. And not everybody ended up being indicted and stuff, but it was a huge operation, right, for a plethora of things, which I'll explain what happened. But so I'm like, okay, I don't know any connection to this. Finally, when I'm like, I want an attorney present if you guys are going to keep questioning me at this point. And they're like, all right, well, then we're gonna leave. We're taking your phone. And we're going to take, back in California, we're going to take your laptop and all your stuff. They took my laptop that I was going to school with at the time, get my bachelor's degree. And I'm like, okay. They take all my electronics. They search the house. They find nothing. And literally just drive off. They just leave. And I'm like, this was the craziest thing. Like, I had up armored vehicles in my yard, and now you guys are gone. And so I go out. I have to knock on all my neighbors' doors and tell them, hey, I'm Dan, by the way. Nice to meet you. And by the way,
that's crazy, right?
I don't even know. Wrong house. It was,
They apologized.
Yeah. I was like, so I'm sorry about that. And luckily, all my neighbors are great. I'm great friends with all my neighbors now, and we all joke about this story, right? At this time, but not for a while. And so I just had to go explain to everybody, hey, I don't know what's going on with this, but I don't think it's anything crazy, because if it was, I wouldn't be here. I'd be gone. And they were even threatening, like, hey, we can arrest you because you have an illegal exhaust system on your truck. We could take your truck. I go,
an illegal exhaust?
Because I have a diesel truck and it's deleted. So they go, oh, it's a mass polluter. I was like, they don't even do smog here in Texas.
Right.
Like, nobody cares about it.
And who checked for that? How fucking petty are you, motherfuckers?
Yeah.
Did someone climb under my truck?
No, they had
You guys are fucking, boy, you must have no crime.
Yeah. They had screenshots of me texting the guy who deleted the truck, which, by the way, I literally just go like, hey, do you do exhaust or whatever? He's a shop. He's like, yeah, bring it in. I bring it in. I pay him $2,500 whatever it was. And I got my truck. I thought that I didn't even know it was illegal, but apparently it is. So it's a mass polluter. And I'm like, okay, give me the fix-it ticket. And they're like, no, it's a felony. Are you kidding me? Like, for pollute, like,
Listen,
okay,
bro, I can't go to prison for pollution. It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
It's like being arrested by the post office police. Like, I can't do that. Give me something else.
Well, the post office police did testify.
Right.
So now I know nothing about this case. I'm left in the dark. I have to go down to Best Buy to get a Go phone. And now I really do feel like a drug dealer, right? Because I'm getting a Go phone.
Right.
You know, I'm using cash for things because...
If I lost my phone, I wouldn't know anybody's phone number.
Yeah.
It's over.
No.
I would never talk to Colby again.
Yeah.
He'd have to come find
Exactly.
me. I'd be like 2 weeks, and
Yeah.
one day he'd show up at my house like, what's going to be like, oh,
Yeah.
thank God you came.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been sitting in the house for
Yeah.
weeks.
That's how I felt, you know, and the only, you know, I knew a couple numbers by heart. So I called them and I was like, hey, this is what just happened, you know, and then I booked a flight and I was like, I got to get back to California tonight. But what was really cool was my contractor, the guy who was proned out. Yeah. We became great friends. And he's a convicted felon. So that worked out. And, but
for him, it's like, it's nice that it's for somebody else.
yeah,
for a change.
yeah. He says, he's like, I've been through some shit in my life, but I've never seen a raid like that before in my life.
Half his workers didn't come back.
Exactly.
Oh, no, Mr. Dan, he's no good.
No, I finished that whole remodel on my own because nobody would come work for me.
He have the police showing up.
Yeah, exactly.
It's no good.
It was real bad. And so I drive, I don't have a phone, obviously. So I drive back to my house and I'm like, I don't even know what the hell I'm going to do. And there's a note taped to my garage door and it says, figure you needed this with an arrow. And down underneath some stuff, he had left a 6-pack of beer for me. And he left his phone number. And I was like, dude, that's the coolest thing I've had happen to me in a while, especially after what just happened. So I gave him a call. This guy's like his third day working with me. And I'm like, hey, man, I don't know anybody here, but can I leave my truck with you for however long I need to, and just, can you drive me to the airport? Because I live like an hour and a half from the airport. I was like, I'll leave it at your house because he was close. He's like, yeah. And I was like, I got to get on a flight tonight. I don't know what's happening to me. I got to get this shit figured out. He's like, yeah, no problem. So I leave my truck with this stranger, you know, this guy I just meet, and he drops me off at the airport and I'm back in California. And, you know, I call my buddy the one I was telling you about, who went through a similar thing with the, you know, tax stuff for dead people. And I'm like, hey man, this happened to me. What do I do? Like, I need your help. You know, you've been through the federal system. This was the FBI, obviously. So I need to figure this out. So I'm like, look, man, I need an attorney, or I need some form of help, like, because I don't know how to navigate this situation. I've never been in trouble in my life. Right. And so he's like, all right, dude, I got you set up. He drives out to the house. We start calling attorneys, and I get a hold of one who ends up becoming like one of my greatest friends now. And he's a great catch because he's a former AUSA. He's a former DA before that, DDA before that. And so he kind of has that in, and he worked a long time there. So he had friends in the AUSA office. So he's like, let me see what I can find out. So he goes and does some backdoor stuff and tries to see what he can find out, calls me back. He's like, yeah, honestly, I don't know if they even know why they're coming after you. And I'm like, okay, that
doesn't change the situation.
That's interesting. Much. And he's like, well, there's no arrest, right? And I'm like, nope. And he's like, but I was like, but I want to get ahead of this. You know? Let's figure out what's going on. So I retain him. So it's my birthday, and I go down and I hand him a check for $25,000 for a retainer fee. Right. And I'm like, well, this is going to be a good investment, probably. I need it. And then the case just goes silent. Nothing. Like literally nothing. He's reaching out. He's trying to get a hold of people. We're trying to figure out what's going on. And it's like the FBI just ghosts. No response to any emails, really. Couple talks. He finally gets a hold of somebody who's working on it, and he tells them, hey, you know, just a heads up, if you guys ever decide to indict or arrest, you know, just let us know. Dan's obviously very compliant. He'll turn himself in, you know, drive down to the marshal's office, whatever you guys need. They're like, yeah, no problem. We can do that. Yeah. Yeah. Famous last words. And so, you know, I get back to Texas, and I'm like, well, these guys aren't doing anything. I stayed in California for about a week. And I was like, I guess I just go back to living my life, you know? So I get back to Texas, and I haven't been arrested. I've had nothing. They have my phone. So I just start completing my remodel. I get my remodel all done. My kids and stuff, everybody moves out. And I'm just kind of like waiting to figure out what's going to happen, right? I sell my house in California after going back there and remodeling it, you know? And it's weird. You're like living this normal life, but it's not normal, right? I mean, I just was raided by the FBI. My life was flipped upside down, and then I'm just told nothing for mass amounts of time passing. So I end up finishing my bachelor's degree during that time, and I'm waiting around, and I'm like, well, you know, I've been placed now into administrative leave during this time. I was on workers' comp for my injuries, getting medically retired. And they said, nope, you're off of workers' comp. We don't care about your injuries anymore. Now you're on administrative leave because you're investigated by the FBI. So I'm still getting paid at this time, of course, on administrative leave. So I can pay my bills and finish my degree. And then I get a call from Antioch Police Department. And they're like, hey, man, we need you to come in, today at 10 a.m. And I'm like, dude, I'm in Texas. What do you mean today at 10 a.m.? So like, oh, well, then you need to be here tomorrow. So I'm like, what? Like, what's going on? They're like, oh, it's for your IA, internal affairs investigation. And I'm like, okay. Like,
you paying for the flight? Because otherwise I'll be there in 2 weeks.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, sure. When do I need to get there? Now, this is December of 2022. So this is, months and months and months after the initial raid in March. And I'm like, all right. So I fly out that night. I try to do what I'm supposed to do. I go in for this meeting, and they're like, oh, yeah, we're going to have you come in for an IA. And I'm like, but I haven't even been arrested. There's been nothing. Like, is everybody coming in for this? Oh, everybody's on, administrative leave. And I go, yeah, but is everybody getting called in for an IA? Because I'm the only one that's on medical leave that you guys took off of. So I'm really curious where this is going. Oh, no, this is just protocol. We need to have you come in for an IA. So I'm like, okay, sure. When do you need me? And they're like, well, we'll set it up. We'll let you know, but you can't be in Texas during the week anymore. And I'm like, I live in Texas. I can't. What do you expect me to do? And he's like, well, you're going to have to live in California within a 2-hour response time from the PD. I'm like, how? I can't do that. Like my kids are in Texas. I don't have a house here anymore. That's impossible for me.
Right.
And he's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. You have to. That's part of our policy.
And fuck your policy. Your policy doesn't mean shit. Your policy isn't a law.
Yep. And then they pretty much tell me if I go, well, that you could be breaking the law then because you're collecting income in violation of policy. You're getting administratively.
Policy doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. So I'm, me being flustered and trying to figure this out. I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I get an IA attorney, which was interesting because the attorney I got, she had represented Barry Bonds in the Balco case, right, for all the steroid stuff.
Right.
So what a small world that here I am for steroids, and she's representing me not criminally, but in-house. And so she goes, okay. She's like, what are they telling you? And I'm like, well, they're setting this IA for this date. And she's like, okay, well, and she really didn't care about, I don't think the moving stuff either, but she goes, but the IA, she's like, we have to go to that. I'm like, okay, well, what do we do with it? She's like, you're not going to be able to give a statement in your IA because you haven't been arrested. If you give a statement, that's just an admission of guilt of maybe something that you did. You're just telling them, like they're almost like working for the feds right now. Let's just call them in for an IA, have them admit everything that's wrong, and then they can use that against me. And I'm like, okay, well, what do I do? I don't know how to operate through this. So she tells me, she's like, you kind of have one of two options. You go in and you tell them, I refuse, plead the fifth essentially in this and say, I'm not going to speak about this because it's an ongoing investigation. And then they're going to terminate you because that opens the door for them to terminate you. Or you just quit. She's like, either way, you're losing your job right now. And I'm like, well, I guess it seems better for me to quit than to get fired. So I submit a letter and I resign.
Right.
And kind of, forceful termination, obviously. That wasn't my intention or what I wanted to do. But they backed me into a corner where I didn't have a choice. So now I just lost my primary source of income. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess I got to figure out life. So I'd finished my bachelor's degree and I decide I wait a little bit of time. It goes nowhere still. There's nothing from the FBI, no response from the AUSA. So I decide I'm going to go be a pilot. So
of course,
right? I'm like, what else can I do with my life? So I go to ATP, which is flight school, and I sign up for flight school. I take out all these student loans because I'm thinking very clear at this time. And I rack up $40,000, $50,000 of student loans, and I'm going through flight school, and everything's going great. Student of the month, I'm killing it. I talked to an aviation attorney who says, hey, bro, even if you are arrested, it's pilots, you can be a felon as a pilot. We can get you hired. It's not a big deal. It just depends on what it's for. And I tell him it's for steroids, and he's like, are you kidding me? Like, they probably won't even arrest. And so now everybody's kind of saying, they're probably not going to arrest. You know what I mean? They're probably not going to come back here and do anything because they would have by now. It's been over a year, and so I'm going through flight school. Things are going good, and I finally am kind of finding some purpose again. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get into a new career. This whole thing is gonna be behind me, and I got my check ride. Check rides in flight is essentially like your test, right, to get your certifications. And so I got a check ride scheduled for the first week of September. And I'm like, all right, I'm really buckling down. I'm getting ready for this check ride. Well, August, whatever, 17th, whatever, 2023. So a year and a half. So later, a little over later, I'm making my kids breakfast and getting them ready for school. And I hear two loud bangs again. I'm like, oh, you got to be fucking kidding me. This can't be happening right now. And I look over and I have, shutters in my house. They're all closed, but the top ones are open and I can see the red and blues coming through. And I'm in a pair of pajama shorts. So I'm like, I'm not fucking walking outside like this. Now I'm pissed, right? Because we had this kind of agreement that if anything were to happen, we're just going to.
Yeah, you'll turn yourself in.
Yeah, I'll just surrender. It's easy. So I go in, I change my shorts real quick, and I throw a t-shirt over my shoulder. I don't think I had it on, and I grab a pair of shoes, and I start walking out, and I can hear this like crazy noise in my garage. I open the door to my garage, and I see a grinder cutting through my garage door, which I'm like, what? Like sparks are flying through, and I'm like, first off, what kind of tactic is that? Like, if I am armed and dangerous, you're
just going to start shooting through the garage door.
You're showing me right where you are, and it's like, it was almost just to like, fuck my garage up.
Right.
Like, it was like they made like this weird cut on it for no reason. And so I'm like, okay, whatever. So I shut the door and I'm like, well, I'm going to go give my kids a hug because obviously this is a different one. I can hear them saying this is an arrest warrant, so I know I'm going to jail today. Give my kids a hug. And I open the door, and as I open the door, SWAT is already moving in. They literally have like a bear cat in my yard, which is stuck, by the way, in mud in my front lawn, and now they're advancing to the door to come force entry. Of course, they meet me at the same time as I come out. My dog goes run out there, talking about shooting my dog, so I'm pissed. I'm not being as compliant as I probably should this time as I was the first time. And they're telling me to drop what's in my hand, which is a pair of white Vans, clearly not a weapon or anything like that, but I needed shoes because I knew I was leaving. And so I ended up, dropping everything I have. They throw me on my belly in the yard, throw me in handcuffs, get me back up, walk me to the car, and they're treating me like, absolute dog shit. And then they changed me, which was incredible to me, but they changed me into waistband shackles. They put my hands, shackle me to my waist. They put actual shackles on my ankles. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I've arrested a lot of people in my life, and I've never for a transport done this from an arrest site. And we're right in front of my house. All my neighbors are out now. You guys have flashbanged my house. Mind you, this is arguably bigger than the first one. Up armored vehicles everywhere. Snipers again, 20 yards from my front door. Drones flying all over. I mean, just absolute madhouse, right? And I'm in disbelief that I'm like, I can't believe this is actually happening again, right? And so, they shackle me up. They take photos of me in front of the house, like almost like I was like on display, mm-hmm. And my kids are obviously trying to look through the shutters, and arguably the lowest point in my life, right? Because my kids have just watched this happen to their dad, who's their hero, right? I'm this guy who's their protector, their provider. My relationship with my kids is incredible. Like, we have arguably the closest relationship I've seen with most dads with their kids. And so for them, this was, probably horrible. Not to mention 2 teachers at their school live on our street, right? So I'm like, worst moment of my life, like the first one was bad, but no one really knew me. It kind of went away. This one, horrible. So they load me up in the car, and the first thing they do is apologize to me. And I'm like, dude, you guys can't like figure this out. Like, right. you guys either hate me or I'm cooperative. What is it, And they go, oh man, we're sorry that we had to hit you like this.
Fuck off.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm thinking like, there's no way. And they go, no, really, like we had said, we were here on the first raid. We said, hey, this guy was cooperative the first time, but California said, they're at the FBI office said, no, this has to be a SWAT operation. And they were like, why? We could literally knock and talk with this guy and he'll come with us. And they said, nope, it's got to be a SWAT operation. This is them telling me this mm-hmm. in the car. And I'm like, honestly, I wouldn't put it past them at this point. Okay, it is what it is. And I told them, hey, it's okay. You guys just doing your job. I get it. No hard feelings for me. But of course, I'm looking at his dash and he's got a sticker that says, I shoot motherfuckers in the face. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Right.
It's like, but okay. So, that's what I'm looking at, and I'm just like, all right, these guys are being cool. They take me to McDonald's, get me breakfast, and then they drive me out to the U.S. Marshal's office. And they say, hey, man, you're just going to be down there. You're just going to have to see the judge, and they're going to release you. Okay, cool. And they're like, no one's ever down here anyway, so it's just going to be you probably sitting in a cell. All right, whatever.
I was going to say, this is clearly that these people have nothing to do.
Yeah, literally. And so they get me down, and I go into the U.S. Marshal's office, and of course a bus rolls up, and it's a bunch of like dudes with like MS-13 tattooed on them. And there's like a whole bus of them that come out. And I'm like, great, man. This is awesome. So they just throw us all. The U.S. Marshals have no idea that I'm former law enforcement.
Right.
And so they put us all in the same area. And I'm like, whatever. Like, I'm just going to keep to myself here. And they leave me in shackles, which was weird. Like, I worked in a jail for a while, and I was like,
you're just not allowed to do that.
Yeah,
You have
we
to be able to protect yourself.
Yeah, you would release people. And so they leave all of us in shackles.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And I go, hey, man, I need to call my attorney. When do I get my call? And he's like, oh, no, there's no calls here. I'm like, what do you mean there's no calls? I'm like, isn't that like one of my rights? Here I am thinking I know my rights, right? Apparently not. And they're like, no, we can transfer you to county, though. If you want to get transferred to county, then you can make the phone call to your attorney. And I'm like, dude, I've just been arrested. I need to call my attorney.
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on, this is crazy. Nope, never got to call my attorney. Never got taken out of shackles. So I sit there for like probably a good 10 hours, maybe a little longer in shackles. And, and I have this spark up conversation with people. Obviously, I'm a talker in there, and this kid starts talking to me, and he's like, oh, man, why are you here? And I was like, steroids. And they kind of look at me. I was in decent shape. So he's like, okay, I get it. I go, what about you, man? Just out of curiosity. He's like, he was in there for a big drug case. Mm-hmm. And so he's talking about his case to me. He's telling me everything, right? How his dad was a cop, and the DEA had this 2-year operation against him. And I'm like, oh, man, so you got raided this morning too, huh? And he's like, oh, no. They called me last week and said, hey, you got 72 hours to turn yourself in. He's, mind you, the substance that he was selling is arguably responsible for killing millions of Americans.
Right.
And he's just gets a courtesy call. But the steroid one,
right.
we gotta really make sure we get that down. So at this time, I still don't know what my charges are. I go meet with a public defender because I can't call my own attorney. And they tell me what my charges are. So I was arrested for conspiracy to distribute anabolic steroids.
Right.
Attempted possession to distribute, which I'd never seen in my time in law enforcement, and then possession with intent to distribute. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. So I go see the judge, and the judge says, hey, are you able to go to court in 2 weeks in California? Because you really don't need to be here right now.
Right.
I'm like, yeah. And he was actually disgusted that I was even in his courtroom. He's like, why are you even here? Like,
right.
This could have been a subpoena. I'm like, wasn't by my choice, Your Honor. And so he ends up saying, yep, you're free to go. 2 weeks, you got a court hearing in California. Take care of it. Okay, I go back. I had to sit there for another like 3 or 4 hours because California wouldn't remove the warrant from the system.
Right.
And the U.S. Marshal finally comes up to me. He's like, hey, man, by this time, it's literally just me. Everybody else has been transferred out. He's like, dude, what are you doing in here? He's like, I just got to ask because I looked at your PC deck, what you're arrested for. And he's like, attempted sale of steroids? He's like, how much? Like, it had to be a lot. And I'm like, no, it's for a vial of testosterone. And he's like, he's like, what do you mean? I was like, dude, I'm a cop, right? And he was like, oh, shit. He's like, we had no idea. He's like, we had no idea you're a cop. No one told us. So he's like, well, it makes more sense. It's obviously very politically driven, And I'm like, yeah. He's like, testosterone? He's like, dude, everybody's on that. And I was like, I don't know, man. I was like, hopefully this gets cleared up. He's like, oh, I'm sure it will. This is crazy. He's like, I've been here 15 years. I've never seen that before, ever. So finally, he just tells me, I hear him yelling at the San Francisco office, telling him, hey, you need to pull this guy's warrant so we can release him. And they just wouldn't do it. So he finally was like, hey, man, I'm going to release you. I got approval, but you still have a warrant in the system. So don't get pulled over.
Right.
He's like, this should be out tonight or whatever. So I get released and I go home. And, and my ex-wife and me were already kind of like on, already on the outs anyways. And so she was already in the process of moving and doing her own thing. So she moves out the following day. So now I'm, arrested and, life blown up again. I got this flight check ride I got to go do in a week or whatever. And I'm just, trying to wrap my head around what's happening in my life. And now I'm on pretrial probation. So they tell me, hey, you you were arrested for drugs, so you got to call in every single night. And if you have, like, they assign you like a color or something, like you're purple. I don't know if you ever had to do this.
Yeah, I had to do it.
Yeah, so every night I'm calling, and like you got to drive all the way, an hour away to the place to do a urinary analysis if you need to. So I'm sitting there doing that every day. Can't drink. Obviously you can't do drugs, which I had no history with drugs anyways. And so that's, I entered the pretrial probation, and I thought this would be taken care of relatively quick. This is August of 2023, and that was not the case, obviously. So time goes by again. I'm sitting there on pretrial probation. I'm going through that process, and I'd gone out. I did my indictment in California, which was pretty basic. It was a little interesting watching the court system operate, because I was waiting. There was a gentleman who was going through his thing, and he was like a career criminal, if you want to call him that. High value issues, and the officers testifying against him. They say, hey, we want him to remain in custody because he did a robbery with a AK-47, and then he stole a car right after that, and then he got into a chase with us, crashed, and we took him into custody. He had another pistol. We got the AK, and we think that he's a danger to society. He's a documented gang member. He's got 15 whatever felony convictions, so we think he should stay in custody. And the judge goes, no, I think he's going to be okay. We're going to release him. And so I'm sitting there and I'm looking at my attorney. I'm like, oh, well, we're good.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm leaving.
Yeah. So we watched that, and then that guy leaves, and he's getting released that day. So I walk up, and she immediately just dives into me, because what had happened was we were all arrested, right? So there was police officers arrested for a vast number of things, from fraud, for cheating in college, essentially, because they paid a girl to do some college classes. They then in turn got a 5% pay increase at work. So they said, oh, fraud, bank fraud, right? You cheated and now you're getting paid. So bank fraud. So they got arrested.
Okay. Fraud.
Fraud.
Fraud. They didn't defraud the bank. They defrauded the government.
Yeah.
So it's like wire fraud,
and maybe that's what it was, wire fraud with them.
Yours was bank fraud.
Mine was bank fraud. And so wire fraud, whatever it was that they had got. So they got arrested for that, and then a couple other for steroid stuff on theirs, and then a couple for like civil rights deprivation things, for like deploying a canine on somebody when you don't need to. Yeah. Things like that, which, all questionable. But all of us are arrested, right? So now it's this really big case that's like hitting Fox News, it's hitting CNN, so it's all over the place. And apparently they were trying to, go out and do these grand jury indictments on us, but they weren't getting them. So they, finally had got it, because there was a bunch of racist text messages that were released, right? And it was racism between cops. Apparently I was in there, which I wasn't. It was on my work phone. I didn't even have. We had to prove later. But so they released all these to the public on accident, right before the grand jury. And hey, don't, but they're out there, and they did such a good job of redacting it that if you just highlighted the redacted stuff and hit copy and paste into Word, it unredacted everything, and it was in the news. So all of our addresses, our phone numbers, everything were out to the public now, and they didn't care. So that was all just out in the open now, and so, all these cops get arrested, I get arrested, but we're all different. But I'm sitting in this indictment hearing, and she looks at me and she's like, oh, all these cops in here, you guys are a disgrace basically to the badge and everything that you did. And she's like lecturing, and I'm like, okay, I get that. All right. Like, so what's the deal? And she's like, you need to put $100,000 up to stay out of jail. And I'm like, you just let the guy walk out with nothing. He didn't have to put anything down. And they're like, well, if you don't have it, you got to put a lien on your house. So I had to sign my deed over of my house to the government saying like, yeah, I won't run away. And I'm like, and my attorney tries to tell the judge, he says, hey, Your Honor, with all due respect, like these are different docket numbers. Just because you're making some of these officers maybe that you think are violent or a flight risk, put
my
these.
client has a minor charge that
he's like, this is anabolic steroids. Like, I don't think this is a big deal. And so she just lost on, was like, they're all the same. Every single one of them is the same. And I'm sitting there thinking like, I'm looking at my attorney because I'm thinking like, is this legal? Like, can she do this? Can she actually say that, And I mean, of course, I guess she can. And so we were all like lumped into this same boat of this is what you guys are, and it doesn't matter. you're all the same. You're all dirty cops, right? And even though many of the cases were different. And so, I end up putting up the $100,000 on my house, go back, I get back on the pretrial probation, and I sit there and I kind of re-enter that world of like, well, what the hell do I do now?
Right.
I can't go. I did pass my check ride, by the way, so I can fly, but I can't fly anywhere. So, but I'm like, well, I got to find a new career field. So I don't know what I'm going to do. So I go back to school for my master's degree. And so while I'm off on pretrial probation, I get a master's degree in sports psychology. And I'm, just kind of figuring out like I'm going to have to work for myself because clearly I'm going to end up with these felonies. But even in this time, all this time's passing and we're getting no information from them. Nothing on the investigation. Nothing if there's anything even moving forward. Are these charges getting dropped? Like, what are we doing?
The feds, they're not dropping the charges.
Yeah, exactly. So, we learned that that's clearly not the case. And so I'm just playing the waiting game for them for a long time. And then people start getting, finally start going to trial or whatever they're doing. Most people are taking plea agreements. So the first guy takes a plea agreement, and they kind of classified him as the ringleader because it was his girlfriend that was doing the college courses for people, which wasn't him. He wasn't even getting any of the profits from it. She was, but she had obviously testified against him, and she was the one who allegedly started this whole thing with a anonymous note, which I can't even explain that on here because we really don't even know how this thing truly started.
Right.
But somehow they ended up with a warrant for our iCloud accounts, which is what got him in the door. And so he gets sentenced to like 30 months. And we're like, oh my God, like 30 months for
because she's doing some college courses for these guys, and they're getting a 5% bump because now they have a college degree.
Yeah, and so now this guy who it's his friends, he's going to go to prison for 30 months, and and he admits to them, takes an information charge, basically saying like, yeah, I sold steroids too or whatever. So they hit him with all of them, sentence him to that, and we're like, goodness, this is wild. Like, who would have thought that this would happen, right? Then you have these individuals in the middle who just cheated in college and they had the wire fraud, and they all get sentenced to 3 months in federal prison. So you're like, okay. Mind you, they've all paid back what they had taken, right?
Right.
Of course, they didn't count that as restitution. They just said that was a donation to the PD. That's how it was accepted in the news. It literally said that the PD accepted it as a donation, but they wouldn't accept it as restitution.
So now they have to pay restitution too.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. So they paid back what they owed, but then they also paid restitution. So those guys went to prison for 3 months, and it kind of left like a handful of us. I was just like thrown on the back burner, and one of the reasons was I didn't have a whole lot of value to them, and I wasn't really a big part of this. Their meat and potatoes of this case, which was the civil rights deprivations, right? That's what they wanted the most out of this, to show that cops are racist, they're targeting people, and they're out injuring people, and they're corrupt. This was, defund the police time, federal takeover with the city of Antioch where I was working. Like, that was the goal, right? And so I'm just sitting there in limbo. A few of these guys are getting sentenced, and so I finally talked to my attorney. I'm like, hey, what are we doing here? Because I'm out of money, pretty much. I've burned through all my savings. I've lost everything that I have now. We need to figure this out. So he's like, well, we can, just take a plea deal and end this if that's how we want to do it. And I'm like, yeah, at this point, I really don't care. Well, I had a co-defendant in this, and obviously, as you know, you get discovery in these cases, right? So we get discovery, and we know exactly what they have against us, right? And they had every text message between me and this other guy talking about anabolic steroids and, what they were and, giving them to them. And I'm like, okay, you can't defend this. It's just, It's plain and it's right in front of your face. There's even pictures, right? So it's like, okay, you can't get past this. And, but my co-defendant, he kind of says, hey, no, they framed me. They put all this stuff on my phone, and I didn't have anything to do with this. And I had kind of told him when we were talking before, I'm like, dude, just take a plea deal. I don't care what you do. You can testify against me for all I care. Like, let's just get this over with. Like, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. This has now been like 4 years since this started. Literally, I got raided in 2022. I didn't get convicted till 2026. And I'm like, this has to end, man. Like, nobody can survive, like this has to end. And, I'd found out that the buddy he was getting the steroids for, who's, in SF, he was testifying against him saying, yeah, he was getting me this or whatever. I'd read his interview and Discovery, you get all that stuff. And so I'm like, okay, well.
The FBI 302s.
Yeah. So I'm like, this is done. Like, everybody should just probably walk in there and be like, all right, you got me.
Yeah.
Let's just give us our sentence and go. So they, the other guy, he goes onto a podcast and he heavily has a distaste for the government and stuff like that. And he kind of puts that out there while he's like in trial. So he was charged with two things. He had the civil rights stuff and he had the steroid one with me. I only had the connection with the steroid. The civil rights side of it, he goes into trial and gets a mistrial because his attorney apparently had like a breakdown in the thing and they give him a mistrial. And so he classifies it as a win because usually they, I guess, don't probably go back for those mistrials. If they don't get them, they sometimes will just let them go or let you accept a lower plea or whatever the case may be. And he was only charged with conspiracy for like civil rights violations. It was just the conspiracy side of it for sending some text messages about going out and, fucking people up or something like that. I don't know the details of that side of it, but it was something along those lines. But now he's on a podcast and he's talking bad about the assistant U.S. attorneys. He's talking bad about the judge. He's talking bad about the whole government system and how they're framing him and doing all this stuff. And so that goes really bad for him as far as his reputation with the government. And now they really don't like him. So they approach us. They're like, hey, would you be willing to do a cooperation agreement? And first off, I haven't heard from you guys ever. Now they want a cooperation agreement. And I'm like, okay, like what is it? Like, what are we looking at here? Obviously my attorney is saying, yes, you need to do this because
he wants to keep you out of jail.
Yeah, he's keeping me out of jail. That's his goal. And he tells me, hey man, usually people that cooperate, if you can provide some significance or some help, and it'll keep you out of jail. Not guaranteed though, but let's try it. And so he's like, let's at least see what they want. We'll go have a meeting with them. Well, I go down and really they just wanted me to confirm everything that I had in Discovery. And I'm like, I'm kind of like weirded out because I'm thinking you guys don't really need me for this at all. Like you have everything.
No, but it's nice to have somebody on the stand say, yeah, I remember texting him.
Exactly.
That's it.
Yep.
That way they don't have to put up a thing and say, these are text messages. The jury connects with someone and sitting on the stand saying that this is true as opposed to them saying instead of them having a technical advisor sit on the stand and talk about how they downloaded this and they're like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. But that guy said he remembers texting him.
Exactly. Right. Yep. And so, they tell me, hey, this is what you would need to do. And it would just be about what you did with him. Yeah. That's all we need you up there for. We're going to show you some text messages and just confirm if you sent those.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, fine. If this will get this over with, let's do it. But kind of my goal, I was hoping, was that the minute he would see that I was going to testify, because he gets the same Discovery, and that the other guy was going to testify, he would just take a plea deal. Like, be smart with it, and let's just all do what we have to do.
All right.
And he doesn't, of course. So he takes it to trial, and I'm like, oh, God, now I got to do this. So I fly out, and so I end up having to testify. Very quick testimony. It was just exactly what I just said. Basically, hey, these are your text messages. Did you send these? Yep. What does T mean? Testosterone. Like, very kind of cut and dry. All right, you're free to go. Well, he ends up getting obviously found guilty of the conspiracy to distribute. He never actually did. He just talked with me about it, getting it for his buddy. His buddy also confirms, yes.
These are my text messages.
These are my text messages.
He was supposed to give me this. Yeah.
Yep. So he gets found guilty, and then he gets remanded into custody until, and the judge, I think, had said something along the lines of like, you're remanded because of your lack of, empathy or accountability with this. Right. Probably would have left him off on house arrest or something, but I think he ended up on house arrest. But however, I didn't really follow what happened at that point. But he still was pending his next trial on the civil rights stuff. So, of course, with me, I'm like, okay, well, I've done my part. Yeah. When can I be sentenced? I just want to get on with my life. Oh, no. We need to get him through his trial in case something else happens and we need you back. But they were kind of being standoffish. And I'm like, okay, I think it was because I didn't have it's not like I had a bunch to give them. And I remember telling them, like, isn't that good that I wasn't a dirty cop. So, like, I don't have information on a bunch of cops. So, like, isn't it good that I don't have that to give you? And it's weird because I think they really wanted me to be more dirty, so I had more information, right? And I'm like, I just don't have that. I'm sorry. This is what I have. It's what I did, and that's all I can account for. And so I have to wait for him to be sentenced. And so the other guy that was involved in that civil rights stuff with the canine, he gets sentenced in the meantime for 7 years. And I'm like, holy shit! That's a big sentence for I think he had 22 dog bites, and I know this guy personally, and I've always known him to be like a really, really good guy. And I truly, like, in my heart, don't believe that he was ever out, doing anything bad.
Right.
He was doing his job. He was a go-getter. He wanted to really work his way up in the ranks, and he was just a hard worker. And I mean, the guy worked 1 million hours of overtime, and I truly believe, like, he shouldn't have been found guilty, in my opinion. And that's just because I knew him as a person. And but so I think 22 dog bites. From my understanding, 21 of the 22, they found him not guilty. And then on one bite, his roommate, who was also arrested during this thing for tampering with a wire investigation of some sort, which was all weird. He was the guy who clearly had given out all the information in the beginning of this. We all kind of pieced that together later. Mm-hmm. But he testified against him. They were like best friends and lived together and stuff like that. But he had testified against him on that dog bite because he said, oh, yeah, I was there for it on a ride along from a neighboring agency, and I witnessed the dog bite. And, yeah, he probably didn't need to, or however that went. It's all out there, obviously, in public record. But he testified against him, so that guy gets sentenced to the 7 years, which was obviously that was tough for me to see because 30 months was hard to see. Now you see people getting testified.
Yeah.
7 years, I'm thinking, man, this is like, I'm going to prison. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way I'm not at this point. And then my co-defendant, his comes up, and he gets sentenced for conspiracy for the civil rights and then conspiracy for anabolic steroids. He gets 7.5 years. Right. I'm like, oh my God, man! Like, this is like,
yeah, but he went to trial. Had he not gone to trial, he probably would have gotten fucking 12 months or
Exactly.
3 months or whatever these other guys were getting that was minor.
Yep.
As opposed to, no, I'm going to go to trial. You go to trial, it's a trial penalty.
Yeah, trial tax, right? Yeah. Yeah. And so, and I obviously wasn't aware of that aspect of it, but thank God I followed my attorney's advice, right? And so I'm like, okay, well, he just got 7 years. He got 7.5. This guy got 30. All these other guys are getting 3 months. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to at least get 6 months to a year.
Right.
I would guess, right? So
no, I would think you would get nothing. But
I initially would have thought I'd get nothing, but then when I'm seeing all these sentences get handed out, I'm like, gosh. So then I meet with, and I don't know if this was kind of the same process for you, but in pretrial I met with probation, U.S. probation, and they did their interview with me.
Yeah.
And, okay,
your pre-sentence report.
Pre-sentence report. Yeah.
You probably would have gotten 3 months if you hadn't testified. If you hadn't cooperated, I'd say you would have gotten the same 3 months they were giving these other guys. It's like a slap on the wrist, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're in and out. You're probably out in 2 months.
Yep. Yeah, and that's probably what would have happened. And probation interviews me, and they go, no, this guy shouldn't go to prison.
Right.
And then so we're waiting on the government, and we're like, okay, we did our part. We understand that we didn't give you as much as you would like, but we did our part. And so we're kind of expecting them to come back with the same thing and say, hey, we'll give him this downward departure. He helped out. He did what he was supposed to do, even though he didn't have really significant information. He still confirmed what he did. Mm-hmm. Accountability, same thing. 3 years probation, whatever, like probation put. And they don't send us anything, so we don't get their sentence report until literally like the day before I'm going in. And I'm like, oh, great. Well, I get it. And they're asking for 1 year and a day. And I'm like, 1 year and a day? Like, are you kidding me? Like, what, for what? And mind you, in the meantime, I kind of passed up on this, sorry. But how I ended up with bank fraud. So I was only charged with anabolic steroid stuff.
Right.
And when I went in to finally plead guilty and I wanted to get this over with, they had me take an information charge for bank fraud. And so I'm talking to my attorney about it, and my kind of understanding was, he's like, hey, they have to have you take this, because if you testify and you don't take this, then it looks like you're only testifying because they're not giving you this felony, right? Like, you're doing it in response to, like, hey, if you testify, we won't charge you with bank fraud.
Right.
So he's like, so you kind of have to take it. Like, you don't really have a choice. So I'm like, all right, well, at this point, I'm like, whatever, I just want this done.
What had they said you'd done?
So what had happened is I had I was buying my house in Texas, mm-hmm. and my house in California, I had almost enough money to pay for the house in Texas cash, but my house in California needed to be remodeled, and I needed to remodel my house in Texas. So I tell my realtor, hey, I want to buy this house and I want to move out there, renovate it, and I want to be able to. Family can move, then I can move back, go back to California, renovate this one, and sell it. So that way I don't have to, have this limbo where people are living through a construction site. She's like, oh, that makes sense. She's like, well, okay, we should get you approved, no problem. So we go to get approved. I don't get approved with the debt to income ratio because
your DTI is too high because that mortgage is still out there.
Well, the problem is I actually made enough, but I was on workers' comp leave. So I just needed a letter from workers' comp that said, hey, he makes this much on workers' comp. Mm-hmm. So it was coming from two places. The first one said, yeah, we'll send it to you. They sent it to me right away. And it showed the total amount, but it only showed what they were responsible for. I needed the other entity, the insurance company, to show, hey, yeah, he gets paid this much for me.
Right.
Well, the lady over there just hated life or whatever. So I call over and I'm like, hey, I just need you to send this over. It's just exactly what they sent so I can get approved for this home loan. And she's like, I don't need to do that. Like, yeah, I know you don't need to, but can you be a good person for 5 minutes and just type that? Because that's the only way I can prove income because this is tax free. And she's like, no, I don't need to do that, and would not send it to me. And I'm like, this is crazy. So I write a letter trying to say, hey, this is what I have. And they're like, no, we can't accept that. You need this. So then I'm given advice. Hey, just have somebody sign a rental agreement on your property.
Right.
So I'm like, okay.
To offset the payment.
Offset, yeah. So I go and I get a rental agreement signed. And so they sign it. We submit it. But then they say, hey, we want an appraisal of what the rent costs out there. And I'm like, oh, my God, now I got to pay for that. So my buddy is like, dude, just delete this on that form. So it just shows like you get the money, you can change it and you actually get this money, right? I'm like, yeah, I can prove it. Like I have paycheck stubs. He was like, just delete it. Who cares, bro? Like you're not lying. And I'm like, worst mistake of my life, right? Because I'm like, yeah, I guess that's right. Like I'm really not lying, but at the same time, I'm falsifying a document. So I'm falsifying a document with the accurate information. You know what I mean? So it was like this really gray area. So I'm thinking cop side of me is like, would I ever arrest somebody for this? Absolutely not. Like you have proof. This is what you did. Okay, I get it. You doctored this document, but
you lied on a loan application.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I do that. I submit it, and they're like, perfect. You're good to go. Everything works out. I end up selling all the properties. Bank never loses a dollar. The feds go to the bank and they ask, hey, do you desire any prosecution against this guy? Nope. And they refuse to even give a statement. They're like, no, this guy pays us. Probably thinking, hey, this guy pays us. I think I've paid $100,000 in interest on this house. I'm like, I'm a great customer to have. So no victim with it, but I still end up with the felony bank fraud. And so, we're coming up to the sentencing and
a year and a day.
Yep, year and a day. So they asked for that. And then I walk in there. I wrote a letter to the judge, basically, like everybody probably does.
Right.
And I go in to read it, and super emotional, right? Just because the only thing I think about is my kids. I don't care. If I didn't have kids, whatever,
Right.
Even if you send me to a year, like, okay, I can do that. But losing my kids and then, the repercussions of that, right? Like I'm already divorced. So now it's like, I'm going to have to try and get custody back when I get back out. I'm going to have to pay back child support. I'm going to feel like this is going to ruin not just my life, but my kid's life. I'm going to lose my house while I'm in there because I have nobody to take care of it. And I'm like, everything's going to fall apart and just crash around me, Like I have even animals, it's like, and I have a girlfriend that lives with me, but if I go get away for a year, can I expect her to stay with me? You know what I mean? That's a lot to ask of somebody. She would, for sure, but that wasn't something I would want to do. So I'm finally just like, I don't really know what to tell you, Your Honor, other than I messed up, but I never hurt anybody, and I'm gonna stand prideful of that to say like I never, discounted the badge or dishonored it or. My military service, all of that was honorable. Like nothing I ever did was against somebody else. But yeah, I used anabolic steroids. I gave them to friends. I understand the severity of it. Yes, I doctored this document, but I never intended to like steal from anybody or victimize anybody. And so the judge kind of looks over at the AUSA and he was like, "You're gonna have to like really justify to me why you want this guy to go away to prison." And they kind of their only response was just that deterrence. Hey, this is going to deter other officers for doing this. And and I'm like, no one's going to remember my name in a week, So is it really going to deter anybody? Probably not. But that was kind of their only thing. And like part of me looks back at the AUSA, wasn't necessarily like, they weren't like bad people. I get it. Everybody's doing their job, right? I get it. This is their job. But at the same time, it's like, have a soul, like have a heart. And part of me is like, did he only say that because he knew like deterrence is not a good enough reason? I don't know. I guess I'll never know that, but I always try to see the good in people. So I'm like, maybe he was just like, hey, throw this guy a bone for once, instead of giving him a laundry list of reasons why I should go to prison.
Right.
Or maybe he just didn't have any. I don't know. But at the end of the day, the judge looked at me and was like, no, you're not going away, Mr. Harris. Like, I can't justifiably send you away. So you're going to do 3 years of probation, 100 hours community service. And he's like, it seems like you've, served your country, you've served your people, were a good cop. And he's like, you made a bad decision. You've owned it. Go try and get your life back. And kind of sent me out of the door, right? And so, fast forward till that was the last thing. And that was in January. And obviously
2026.
Yeah. So 6 months ago. And since then, it's just kind of been a roller coaster on what do I do with my life, right? Now I have 4 felony convictions. It's like you leave there, feeling great, right? Like, oh my God, I'm not going to prison. I thought I was going to prison for sure. And I leave there, I'm not going to prison. I get to go home to my kids. I've been lying to them the whole time, telling them, Dad's not going anywhere, even though I'm thinking, Dad's probably out of here, guys. And so, very, very good moment. But the second I walked out of the door, instantly my mind is like, well, how do I get rid of these felonies now? Like, how do I change my life? How do I earn a living? And I'm like, well, I'm going to need a pardon, which I'm in the process of trying to get right now. And so I'm like, well, I don't, how do I go back to being a contributing member of society, right? Because that's really what I need to do. It's like, I'm not somebody that should just be sitting there, collecting military disability only and surviving. Like, I've always been a, contributing member to this society, and I want to go back to being that, And, so I decided I took kind of the last bit of money I had. I invested into a mentorship for like coaching, online coaching. So I'm like, I know fitness really well. I'm a nerd with that. So I was like, maybe I'll just start online coaching. And I started that a month ago. And literally my first month, brought in over 40 grand, which was shocking, which changed my life. Because right before that, my savings account was $58.
Jeez.
So, I walked around on average with, $200,000 to $300,000 in my savings, always. I was very good with money. But then after divorce and, through this process, my dog had back surgery, like everything that could go wrong went wrong. Lawsuit with the pool that I've lost probably $100,000 on. It was just one thing after another. My air conditioner went out of the house, thousands of dollars. And I'm just like, goodness, every chunk of money I had saved and stockpiled to survive, gone. And I literally, right before I launched, a few days before, I looked at my bank account. I had $765 in my savings, in my checking, $58 in my savings. And I'm like, this is like my Hail Mary. I got to launch this online coaching business. And I got to make something of myself, or else I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to lose everything I have. And so I did it, and I'm starting to rebuild finally, and who would have thought that, since doing that, I got back on social media 8 weeks ago, and now I'm sitting across from you.
Hey, you guys, I appreciate you watching. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notified of videos just like this. Also, if you want to follow Dan, we're going to leave all of his social media links, and so you can get in contact with him. If you're interested in being a guest, we're going to leave our website there. You can go to the website. You can fill out the Be a Guest form. Thank you very much for watching. Really appreciate it. See ya.